Hey, hey, could you guys hear that? You know what that is?
What's that?
That's Midway Radio! We're back. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm Carlos Gomez, and we're gonna go around the horn like we always do. We got to introduce the crew, the Midway crew. We got Ryan Brockmeyer.
Hello, everybody.
We got DJ Risky Business.
What up?
We got DJ Sean Doe.
Hello, everybody.
The lovely lady in the middle, Barb Kalicki.
Hello.
And we got Moses. Can I just call you Moses? We got Kevin Beecham, ladies and gentlemen. We got Kevin Beecham is in the house. This week we're going to be talking to a couple. Dare I say, the first couple of Chicago hip hop. Am I out of bounds?
I don't know. Does that make us the oldest couple?
Right.
The sexiest couple.
I'm going with that.
We're as old as Moses. There we go.
From Urbanized Music, folks, we got Amina and we got Coolout Chris.
Yeah. What's up, Midway? Look at you guys.
My fault. I forget that we got this. Amina and Coolout Chris.
Our live studio audience.
Boom. We forgot to flash the little lights to get the live studio audience active.
Oh, it's all good. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes,
welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we go into it with you guys, let's get a little bit of an update. Mr. Ryan Brockmeyer, what do we got for our folks?
Not a whole lot of crazy updates the last couple of weeks. We've still just been doing some interviews since our show last week. We only did one interview last week, and that was with MC Think. He's now goes by the name of Paulie Think, and he's very unique. Came up in the early to mid '90s, but he is someone who crossed over with a lot of the punk scene. So it's cool to kind of get that different perspective of somebody who's playing that and seeing how Chicago hip hop interacted with other communities in the city. And he moved away from Chicago for a little bit, but he came back earlier this year, and he's got his own podcast and still is making some music. So we interviewed him last week. And
is his podcast music centric?
Yes.
What's that called? Do you know?
I should, because I was on it, and I feel really bad for not knowing what it is off the top of my head. So I can't remember the exact name of it. I don't want to say what it is and be wrong with it. So we can look that up and share that towards the end. So
cool.
Yeah, other than that, it's kind of the same old. A lot of behind the scenes stuff still going on. We're working on trailers. We're working on other short videos. We're working on the website. So keep checking out everything Midway. So we got a lot of stuff coming up here in the next couple of weeks.
Every day something's being worked on. Every single day.
We're hustling.
And if we're not working on it, we're going crazy working on it.
Yes.
Thinking about what we do.
Yes. One thing that is coming up tomorrow is the Night of Hip Hop Stars at Subterranean, which is a benefit show for us for the Midway Project. And this was organized by 606 Hip Hop and the two lovely people that we're talking to tonight, Miss Amina and Coolout Chris from Urbanized Music. So thank you very much. You two for organizing and putting all this together. Maybe if you could kind of tell everybody what this is going to be about and what.
Wow. Well, actually, we should thank you for even giving us a reason to have a Midway fundraiser. I don't know. It was Shadow Master is over there at Subterranean and had access to the venue and had booked the date. And I don't know. I think maybe what he was originally planning to do didn't happen or something like that. And we thought, what better thing to do than still keep the date and do something that was worthwhile for the community that we all at least had some interest and passion about. And Midway was like the unifying force. And so we thought, why not invite a whole bunch of people out? Some of the people who you featured in vignettes over the last year. Some of the people who were at Emporium for the event that you had there. And it was real quick turnaround. We reached out and we got a bunch of people who were interested. So we thought it might be great to kind of parade the stars out. So a bunch of artists are just coming together to fundraise to help support the work that you guys are doing with the project. And so it's tomorrow night at Subterranean, 2011 West North Avenue in Wicker Park. It's an early set from 6 to 10. So it could be like an after work / bringing in the nighttime event. It's $5 for everyone. And so the performers are also paying at the door, which is super cool. And there are a whole bunch of artists. I could go down some names just to give you an idea of what a fantastic night this is going to be. But should we do it like fancy?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Fancy.
So
You have to pretend to be opening. You guys have to pretend like you're announcing the winner, right? So you guys have to open the
right.
envelope and be like, "You want to read it? No, you read it. No, you got to read it."
Okay, we're opening the mail / list of people. All right.
All right.
And performing tomorrow night will be
Inch 13.
And Annihilation,
Audacity.
D2G,
DA Smart.
Duro,
Encyclopedia Brown.
Endangered Species,
Griffin.
Han Solo,
Ideologist.
Jaw Safe,
Kingdom Rock.
Mass Hysteria,
Mike One.
Profound,
Pugs Adams.
Sam I Am the MC,
DJ Sean Doe, who's covering his eyes right now.
Shadow Master MC,
DJ SB1.
Spalaney's,
Urbanized Music.
Vice Verse, and more.
That
was amazing.
fantastic.
That was
You
beautiful.
guys were special to me before. Now you guys are firmly implanted in my heart.
See there?
You should,
Yeah, we got some skills.
yeah, you should be on radio or something.
You should be like performers.
Maybe
or something.
Midway Radio.
Man, you guys ever
Oh,
tried
right. I
rapping?
see what
Midway
you did
Radio.
there.
Ever tried rapping? That might really work out for you.
We should think about that.
We're
We
thinking
should
about
think
that. We should try that.
And so that's the lineup. And there's some, and more. But it's really short sets, 5 minutes per artist. And we're just gonna bless the mic, bless the stage, raise some money, and then get off stage, and hopefully we can support the great work that you guys are doing over there at Midway.
Absolutely.
Just gonna
I
light
got
the
100
stage on fire.
100% of the proceeds is going directly to what you guys are doing.
Yes.
Every single penny.
I gotta say,
Yes.
I don't.
Except
I
for
don't
what
care.
we have to pay the venue.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Except for paying the venue. But
Yeah.
that's a different story.
And honestly, I don't care what is raised. I gotta tell you personally, I'm really moved that I mean, this is what you want the community to do, but I'm genuinely, sincerely moved that this was something that was done by the community on its own, because it gives some validity to what we're doing and shows that people do actually care. Like, we're trying to constantly, it's the biggest thing we're trying to do with this film, and I think everybody else agree with me, is when I'm telling people what we're doing, we're trying to get people to believe and understand in our own importance as a community, because sometimes people don't necessarily see that or understand our own achievements, milestones, and purpose. And
Right.
yeah.
So I have a quick question. Is it because you guys really want to see this film being made, or does it, or do we look like a group of kids that you could feed for 25 cents a day?
Actually, we're hustling for film credits.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yes,
that's it's all about the
That's all
credits.
it's about.
Keep it real. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I mean, I think we're deeply passionate about
Yeah.
Chicago hip hop. And contrary to what people say about Chicago being a city full of haters or people who don't support each other, I couldn't disagree more, because I think that one, we would not have made it this far had we not supported each other. And we're extremely diverse and very segregated. And so I think sometimes that leads to the notion that we are disconnected, but we're just connected in our little enclaves. You know, these people are connected with these people. These people are connected with these people. And it just provides greater depth in the communities of people doing stuff. So we love what you guys are doing. And I mean, I think this is what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
So we're doing it.
Yeah, to add on to that, I mean, you guys have done really the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. I mean, kudos, hats off to everybody. I mean, you're talking about countless hours, interviews. I mean, I've seen you guys, you know, sometimes Risky and Ryan look like you guys hadn't changed for weeks. You know, I could honestly smell the recording coming off of you. But no, I just had to throw that aside. But you got seriously. I mean, you got, you know, I mean, it's okay. It's okay. It's dedication. But I see that you guys have dedicated a lot of time. I've looked at a lot of the vignettes, and honestly, I learn something every time I look at it. I love Chicago hip hop just as much as you guys do. So when I'm looking at this stuff and I'm hearing these stories, and I'm like, this is great. This is phenomenal. Like, people need to know. And this story is going to get out, hook or crook. I don't care if we got to rob a bank or whatever.
Hey,
I'm sorry. Did I say it on camera?
Those thoughts delivered by Coolout Chris are those of Coolout Chris and Coolout Chris only. They do not reflect
Carlos is my manager. Carlos is my manager. No. But that's just no. We would never do anything that serious. But just to show the importance, you guys have put in the work to kind of showcase the community, and I feel like the community should step back and do the same thing. If we do a series of fundraisers, I mean, anything we can do to help you guys make sure that this thing gets off the ground and done right. It's our duty to do it, just as you guys have opened up your hearts and your time and, you know, left jobs and, you know, sacrificed time with your families to make sure this happens. So I deeply appreciate it. Amina deeply appreciates it. And I'm sure the Chicago hip hop community does the same. So
at the end of the day, I think Ryan, Kevin, I think I can speak for all of us. We want to make sure that the product makes everybody proud. And at the end of the day, everybody, like, that's the whole thing. Chris, you said, you hit the nail on the head, is Chicago's so big, so diverse. We want people to learn something new from this every day. Right before you got on, we were talking about someone we interviewed this week who a lot of people may not know, but he brought such a unique, and that's the one thing that I'm very proud of that we're doing in this film. MC Paulie Think, right? And a lot of people may not be familiar with him, but he brought, he is from the drum and bass, and he's an MC. He's a rapper. He's Subterranean. He's been around the battle scene forever. He put out his first 12-inch in 1994, so he's been around. Yeah. But he also became a prominent MC in the drum and bass in the rave scene. And then he was also in the punk scene really heavy. And he brought in, he was doing the first punk and hip hop parties at the Fireside Bowl. He was the one doing those.
Dope.
So it brings that whole other aspect. And he's got these great stories that we'll reveal later, but talking about how the punks were receiving hip hop and how hip hop, and I always felt that punk music run parallel with hip hop because it's anti-establishment music, it's street music, and they ran parallel. And you know, like, there's just this really cool, like, when you find someone like that who was a part of the hip hop scene and loves the hip hop scene as much, but a lot of people may not be familiar, and we were able to tell his story and show how he's connected to everybody else.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And it's so much bigger than, I mean, I know you guys talk a lot about the film, and people do talk about the film because it's a product that we can see, you know, being born. But there's the whole archival piece of it that I think is just also so important. And so it's really bigger than the movie. There are all these stories that you guys are collecting. And by me, you know, I currently teach a course in hip hop. So for me to be able to refer my students to this resource database of interviews and stories about Chicago hip hop, I think is just phenomenal and just crucial to the work that we're doing in this moment in time.
We don't want to at least me, like I don't want Midway to necessarily speak for Chicago hip hop, but I would really like Midway to be kind of the go-to source for Chicago hip hop. So, there's a lot of, there's been a lot of attention paid to Chicago recently, whether it's because of the film and television stuff that's being here, or the, CNN did that Chicagoland series and that kind of stuff. And it's clear that when national companies they want to get like a local Chicago flavor, especially for hip hop, they, it's a quick Google search, and there's some stuff that pops up right away on Google that's not necessarily reflective of Chicago hip hop. And hopefully, we get Midway up there to when somebody's researching Chicago hip hop and they need to know something or they need to find something, they can go and use that as their resource. Right. And like you said, kind of like a database and yeah, let's go ahead.
And that's the key, because the one thing about this database is it's built. We may be physically building it, but it's the community that's building all of this, all the information. So it's not. Right. So it's like if someone from out of town uses this resource to learn about Chicago hip hop, it's coming directly from the horse's mouth, because the information is coming directly from what we're told from each individual artist.
Right.
And it's not hearsay or opinions or someone, or like you said, a lot of times stuff is
technically it is, but
technically. But one thing we are doing too, which we're putting a lot of work in, is we do verify the best we can, and we check stories out, and we check several sources, and we use all our resources to make sure that everything we're getting is, because somebody might tell a story and it sounds crazy, and you're like, oh my God, really? And then, not that we don't believe them, but there's two factors that go into this. You have the factor of someone's recalling information from 20 years ago. They may not be bullshitting, it just maybe they remember it just how they remember it, right?
Yeah.
And then, there's that, and then just somebody might be bullshitting. There's that. So,
and something that we're not going to get into it. You guys have to wait for the documentary, but there's some things that people may or may not have done that they want to stay clear of, and 20 people are telling the same story about you. You shouldn't have done whatever it was that you're embarrassed about.
Yeah. Well, with that though, I've referenced like with these stories though, I've gone back and most of the time I go and I check references and everything like that as much as I can if I have the ability to. You can cross-reference other people. And we've had, and the great thing about this is everybody's coming out and everybody's remembering things pretty well. And we haven't had any issues at all with really anybody telling us anything ridiculous. Even the shit that's like, oh my God, really? I've gone and checked and cross-referenced stuff, and I have someone else telling me the same thing, and I'm like, holy shit, okay.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it is that what I really appreciate too, kind of to Ryan's point about a Google search and what it might yield if you're trying to find stuff about Chicago hip hop, is that you guys have been very deliberate about collecting these stories. So when Midway does rise to the top of that Google search, it's because you guys were deliberate in collecting these oral histories, and not just you've done a lot of stuff or talked about a lot of people and therefore your name rises up. But I appreciate that because, it helps validate the integrity of the work that you have.
I have a question from the education side. You mentioned education, teaching a hip hop class.
Yeah.
You find like when you go into those classes, these students, do they have a good idea of the past of hip hop in Chicago, or are they kind of pretty much unaware of what's happened?
Well, actually, for my course, so it's called Hip Hop Sonic History. It's at Columbia College, and it's introductory. It fulfills a history requirement for the students. Yep. It's for non-music majors. So I would say, well, first of all, let me say that probably about half of my students are not from Chicago. So they don't even, maybe they just heard a few names. The people who are from Chicago, and not just with Columbia, but over the years that I've taught, even with high school students, have very little information about Chicago hip hop history. They know the big names, obviously, but they probably never heard of Ange 13 or Cassius D, or D.A. Smart, or Urbanized Music for that matter. So many of them are in tune with, you know, they know who Chance is,
Right.
You know, and they know the artists of their generation who are from Chicago, but many of them don't have a lot of knowledge about Chicago hip hop history. And cool that you'd even bring that up, because in our class we talk about, like, there's this whole segment on battling, and so we watch the Scribble Jam battle with Juice and Eminem, and I'm like, oh look, there's AMC. So there's this whole tie-in. But then when Midway came to visit us and we're talking about the people that are involved in the films, there's Kevin Beecham again. So with these stories and these pieces, they're you know, learning how to connect the history and the dots.
Yeah. No, that's
I think
cool.
Christy left us with an echo.
Oh,
okay.
That's risky.
Okay, it's gone.
Yeah, I found this like similar thing here. So I think that's kind of a common thing. Like when I do like, you know, lectures here and like in colleges, they all know rhyme sayers. But when I do like, you know, high schools or middle schools, they won't have any clue about rhyme sayers, even here in Minneapolis, because it's like right now it's disconnect is happening so fast, which is showing more the need for that history to be out there, people to access, because you know, it'll slip away easily, even in this age, but there's so much information out there. So yeah,
right. And also speaking to that, in 2003, you know, I was part of a team who drafted a resolution to recognize July as Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month. And part of the reason we did that was specifically to address that there were a lot of kids jumping on stage at Sub T, like, yo, you know, I can do this, and having no idea that Jesse De La Pena used to live in that building back in the day, or just these other pieces of history. They just see, oh, here's an opportunity and here's a door open and I can walk through it. And we thought it was really, really important for them to have an understanding of the people who open those doors, because at some point they too will be opening doors for other people. And it's important to kind of be able to teach that history, document it, and also kind of passing the torch, because you know, they have no idea of what we did in Wicker Park in 93 or 94. They don't even know that this isn't the same Wicker Park that we were in back in the day. So it's important to be able to. Park? Yeah.
When you could easily get robbed walking down the street.
Right. And you probably still can, but just different.
Now they hit your 401k. They don't hit your purse.
There you go. Exactly.
Hey, question for you, Chris. So you know, obviously you've been super active about many generations in the hip hop scene out there. So how are you seeing, like, kind of piggybacking up what Amina mentioned earlier? How are you seeing like the different connections of the community working together, the pros and cons of like maybe the 90s into now, how it's changed, and people working together to get things done?
Well, it's funny that you asked me that. I just sat on a panel yesterday for Idris Goodwin has a hip hop play called How We Got On. If you guys ever get a chance to see it, it is phenomenal. It's playing at the Haven Theater until like September 9th or something. It is extremely dope. It's ran by some teens who are doing all the acting. But I was asked the same question. I think the difference, and a lot of you guys, you know, we're all around the same age bracket. Back then, you know, there was only maybe The Brat was on, maybe Common just started budding. Twista hadn't even popped on Loud yet. Like, he had his deal on Loud, had like 2 records, and then that deal was over. So I think back then we had that next person get on mentality. So we were all kind of like, get out of the way, get out of the way. So, you know, like, you know, you wouldn't get just, you know, a rapper from the South Side calling a rapper from the North Side, say, hey, you know what, come on, drop 16, do a feature. It wasn't that. We were so hungry. We were like crabs in a barrel trying to get out and be that next person on. And what I see now is the technology has basically changed that whole climate, because, you know, Chance can get on the phone. Well, I know him and Vic got beef now, but, you know, back then he'd get on the phone, be like, hey, man, I need you to come drop 16 on this. And it was easy. and we didn't have to go through the bureaucracy of, you know, having money to go to a studio and spend $250 for a 2-inch reel to rent, and the other half was used by a rock band. You know, so now these kids, they say, hey man, come on, I got it hooked up in my closet. I
You
got Pro
recorded on
Tools.
2-inch reels?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Yes, I did.
Things.
The super huge things, yeah. And when you used to have to edit, you'd have to physically cut the tape and put Scotch tape and stuff over it to edit, and it was just where now you can go in and do it super quick. So I think that's the difference, the technology, and then I think also the fact that Chicago has a much brighter face when it comes to hip hop now, because, you know, you got Chance, you got Vic, you got Saba, you got Malcolm London, you got a whole bunch of these, you know, young upstarts who kind of are in their own lane, but they all kind of work together, and they're not like, well, I'm not going to help this guy because I'm trying to be the next person to get on. So they're technically on already.
Yeah. And yeah, just to add on to that, access to resources.
Yes.
Because we had none. You know, it was, you know, like whatever little resource we had, we were barely trying to hold on to.
Yeah.
And now, you know, like you were saying, you spent so much money just to go in and record back then. But now it's like, come over my crib. I got Pro Tools. We'll record it. We'll make the video. We'll put it up on SoundCloud. Before you leave, we'll have people downloading it.
Right.
Yeah. And that's like a reality. Like, if only they had that in '93.
Yes.
We'd all.
Yeah. Back then, if you got signed to a label, a portion of your budget was already, if you got 2 videos, that was a good portion of your budget. Publishing, you didn't recoup until the second album if you sold some records. Now these kids are like, I don't need a label. I mean, sample clearance out. They're putting every damn thing out. They're sampling Michael Jackson and Marvin Gaye, and you know what I mean? And they're doing everything, you know, but we, and I had a conversation with somebody else not too long ago. We were talking about how much further would we be if we had the same technology that the youngins had. And I think we would probably be doing pretty good, but I also kind of feel like I'm kind of glad that I did not have that, because, you know, we had to do the grassroots. We had to hand out flyers. We had to, you know, sneak around in the city at midnight, putting up posters and stuff on light poles, and you know what I mean? So there was a lot of things that we learned. You know, we went to the record stores and talked to the record buyers, and, you know, we went to the radio stations. You know, if we weren't paying them to get them played, we were like, please, you know, play it just for 2 minutes, whatever. You know, now these kids are like, man, I just recorded this song about sitting on the toilet, and I released it on SoundCloud, and I got 5,000 streams already. You know what I mean? It's just like, you know, so I'm glad for what we went through, but I also appreciate technology and how it makes it a little bit more accessible on a big playing field for everybody.
You know, I gotta add to this, because I think I talked a little bit in Amina's class about this. This is the one little bit of downfall that I have with the technology, because it makes everything so accessible to everybody. Quality control is lost.
Oh yeah, big time.
So the one thing is, these kids can get Pro Tools and they can download and they can record, and they don't know the difference of what sounds good and what doesn't. And you really shouldn't be, very, 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 very few producers should be mixing their own records. And almost zero of them should be mastering their own records. Because they most likely don't have a clue how to do either one of them.
Let me introduce a counter argument to that. How do we know what people like if we have, dare I say, Big Brother telling us what to listen to? Because maybe people want to listen to hip hop music about taking poop on the toilet.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm referring to the sound quality of
yeah.
So
Not the content,
you know what?
but the
not
delivery.
the content. Because like people nowadays, some of these kids, they'll like a rapper will trade for a beat, and he'll get a beat from a producer through SoundCloud, and they'll just send them a 2-track, and then they'll actually, amazingly enough, record their vocals over a beat you can't mix your vocals with, and they put it out, and then it starts, and what happens is, the problem here is it starts getting accepted as the norm, and the quality of music goes down so much that people don't know what a good record sounds like anymore.
And you know what? I think part of that, it kind of all ties in. I think that with all this accessibility, what we miss kind of is what you're saying. We miss learning how to do what it is you're trying to do.
Exactly.
And we come from an era when you learned how to, performing in a studio is different from performing on stage. And you knew the difference. If you learn hip hop from YouTube videos, then you're just going to try to emulate what they're putting out there. So you get people who get on stage, they don't do their leads. They're just doing the backgrounds. It's like they're rapping over their vocals. They just jumping in every now and then to say a couple of words because no one ever taught them how to perform a show. No one taught them how to promote. Like we used to grind. You had to get out. People had to know about there was no, oh, let me see what's going on tonight, and I'm just gonna swipe and find an event. You had to know what was going on. You had to be at that event so you could hand out your flyers to your show. You had to promote it. Now it's just, well, 80 people said they're coming.
Exactly.
On Facebook. So like the craft, the art of the craft is lost. So people don't know how to record or mix because to them it's just you just put the words in the computer and then you take them out and then you share them to someone. And so like that part of the art is lost. And because we didn't have the technology with our era, I think we were forced to learn how to do it. You had to learn how to promote. You had to learn how to perform. You had to learn how to deliver your lyrics line for line every single time the same way and not like half-ass a show. But if I'm learning hip hop from YouTube videos and rap videos, it's like, well, this is what they're doing. So I'm just going to do that. And, I work with people who they can't even project. They're like, well, my mic not working. No, your diaphragm is not working. But no one ever told them that.
They don't know that you're not supposed to cuff the mic because you need to be able to rap into the mic.
Exactly.
No one ever told them that. They see people doing it.
And then a lot of times that goes to not having a proper sound check because you don't have monitors.
That reminds me of That reminds me of, you guys remember on Original Kings of Comedy where Steve Harvey goes to a rap show? He goes, you got 40 people up there hollering and screaming with all these instructions. Put your hands in the air. Live like you just don't care. Don't care. I give you 750. You scream.
We always talk about the technology being a possible hindrance, or depending on what side you're is like that. Because so we talked about, the stuff is easily accessible for that kind of stuff. The sound quality isn't quite there. The maybe quite the hustle isn't there. But the other side of that is what you guys just brought up, which is also very important, I think, is the hustle and the work of being, like you said, being out and having to hand out your own flyers, having to push your own music in front of people. Like you could go out of a show at Sub T 10, 15 years ago, and there'd be 10 people giving you your flyers and handing you, trying to get your attention. You're trying to compete with them, and they're going that extra mile to make sure that their music is better than somebody else's. They're going that extra mile to stay out an hour later to get those shows. And just as you said, now it's so easy because you can go to the studio, you can put a song together. It may not be completely mixed and mastered, but that's fine. We'll put it up on SoundCloud and have people download it, and then we'll take it and tag it to a Facebook event, and then that's our promotion.
The closest thing we had to the internet back then was Ange 13's Hip Hop Hotline.
That was it. Exactly. And knowing that you could go to Elbow Room every Monday for hip hop, because that was one of the few things we had. So every Monday, religiously, we would travel all the way from out in the woods to go there.
To Elbow Room
every Monday.
So I'd like to point out that I've been listening to Ange's latest album, and she's got a lot of tropical sounding music, and that happened after she met me. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not starting nothing, Ange. I understand. I got you, girl.
There you go.
And shout out to Angela Longshot, because I just listened to that album last week finally, and it's a really, really good project. So
God, isn't Longshot one of the most underrated MCs you've ever heard? Not just Chicago MCs, but just
hands down.
That's great.
I mean,
but if you name yourself Long Shot, aren't you setting yourself up for this very thing?
For the record, I believe
I'm playing Long Shot. Don't come and get me, dude.
I believe his name is the Marvel character. No, one thing I got to say, Chris, it's funny too. We were talking about technology, and Chris is a longtime Chicago producer. Remember when producers had sounds, like producers had a certain sound, and I think that it was attributed to the fact that you didn't have access to 3,000 drum sounds. You didn't have 400 drum kits. You built your drum kit, and if you produce 50 songs, it's more than likely going to have the same kicks, the same snares, and you created a sound, you know, and then you use different samples, but you created. Now these kids, it's funny, like I just seen a video on YouTube about a dude who's just addicted to collecting hard drives of drum kits, and I'm like, it's so true. And the guy's like, man, that sounds exactly like the last 40 808s, and he's like, man, I'm a country.
I mean, you can say that even when producers had their own sounds, not only just the drum sounds, but it was what they were sampling. Because a lot of the times, you know, the producers, especially in the late 80s and early 90s, they didn't, you know, not everybody was a huge record collector. They were using what their parents had or what they had around them. That's why you could have some people that had a giant like Parliament or Ohio Players collection, and then most of their sounds sounded like that. Then you had somebody who was a really big into James Brown, and so most of their sounds were around that. So that was where how producers also had their own sounds.
You know, it's funny. I think me and Brian have had this conversation, and I don't know. I've read a couple different stories on the making of 36 Chambers, and we all know 36 Chambers is a very, you know, it is what it is. It's a super classic record. It's an amazing record. That being said, if you break down all the samples, they're almost all Stax and Hi-Fi records.
Yep.
It's all Al Green or Al Green Connected. It's all Memphis samples and Chicago. It's got the Seal Johnson and it's got the Memphis. And Seal Johnson was on Stax, so it's all connected. And it's funny because I feel like I could just picture like RZA going in, stealing his dad's crates of his dad's crate, and being like, "Yo, we're gonna make the album from these," and then they did. And because and because they were limited, they were able to be more creative. I think limitations force you to be more creative, and then there we go.
Not to mention RZA was doing 8-bit sampling back then. So you know, so you take some Stax records, which already, you know, those were recorded real muddy, you know what I mean? And then you put 8-bit sampling. That album when it came out had grit that nobody. I was even surprised that labels would let them, as muddy as that record sound, come out, but it was an energy, it was a feel from it.
Sure.
And I think at the time he might have even been using maybe the ASR. I think he might have used on that, but
he was. That's exactly what he did.
Yeah. So
I'd also heard that Prince Paul helped him quite a bit arranging the samples and the engineer, who I forgot the engineer was, but I think he was more telling them his ideas of what he wanted. And I think Prince and the Prince Paul and the engineer were physically the ones actually creating the beats more so.
Yep. I believe that too. Yeah. Because it seemed like RZA didn't really start coming into his own until later albums, when you said that he was actually pushing buttons and doing stuff.
But that's actually producing. That's like, people call him a producer, and I'm like, that's actually what it is, because that's the difference between a producer and a beat maker. You have beat makers who can be producers, and then you have beat makers who are just beat makers. Then you have people like RZA and Dre that are real producers. A producer is someone who can take a beat, whether he makes the beat or not, and he's going to bring in the musicians and put it together and arrange everything and bring in and tell the rappers how they're going to do. That to me is a producer. That's that Quincy Jones factor.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris, you ever did any formal training for like sound, or were you kind of a natural with your ear and stuff?
Well, yeah. A lot of it was kind of like hands-on, like early coming on. But after I graduated from high school, I went to Columbia for a couple years and I studied sound engineering. So, I went through the Ohm's law, Watt's law, not mixing 808s with bass lines. And it didn't appeal to me as much because, here it is. I'm like engulfed in hip hop, but I'm miking up drums. And I was at like Track Studio doing it. I was just like, and I'd already prior to that, I already been in Hinge, CRC. I'd been out in studios with DJ Quick out in LA. So I'm out here now and they're like got me miking up drums. But there was a lot of stuff that as I look back from it now that I really retained. And I'm like, man, I'm glad that I got that formal training. I never completed the whole,
Right.
but I did my couple years there with the sound engineer, and it really helped out.
For sure. All right, cool.
There are a
Is
lot of
there-
rules to they give you rules to say like like you said, you don't want to mix 808s because there's frequency issues that can muddy things
Exactly.
up and do certain things. But at the end of the day, do you agree with this? At the end of the day, even if you break, hip hop's about breaking rules in my book. And at the end of the day, if it sounds dope, that's it. That's your record.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think you know
absolutely,
the
yeah.
rules to break the rules if you want to. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And that definitely. And that's the thing. You always wanted to do something different or obscure. And back to what Kevin was saying about, or I can't remember exactly who said, but about having your own kits and trying to create your own sound as a producer, experimenting with different kind of things and, trying to adjust the frequency so you can still get that bass line to come in there slightly every 4 bars after that 808 kick was, that was challenging, you know what I mean? And then doing it on your own shoestring budget or spending the amount of money that you would go to a studio to have it master. A lot of mastering techniques and stuff that I learned as a producer was just because I couldn't afford at the time to go into the studio and do this. So I would tweak whatever stuff I had, my EQs, my compressors at the time, because now it's a plug-in. It's like, boom, I hit a button, everything sounds brighter. But back then
That's
you
crazy,
had to
right?
adjust levels. Yeah, you had to adjust levels. And I tell a lot of younger guys now because, yeah, man, my studio and I got these monitors. And I tell them, I said, well, when you do your mixes, do you use headphones? And they're like, no, why would I use that? I have studio monitors. I said, well, the headphones, the cans are right there near your ears. What you are going to hear is going to be coming out of there, unless you got some whack headphones, you know what I mean? But you can hear that way. You get the right balance of how your vocals are going to sound over the music and different things like that. But man, I got these Cerwin Vegas and I just hit the button there. I'm like, all right, that's cool. But then when you go and play it on, when you test reference it on 5 or 6 different things, and you're like, man, why does my vocal sound way over here? Or why is the music here? Like, man, something simple. Put on some headphones and really listen to it. Like, oh, okay.
I'm listening with Sarah Vegas at home. It's like I think about how what's going to be the real experience of the consumer. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Chris, you were talking about making music in LA. Do you find that there's a fundamental difference between making music in LA or how they approach making music in LA versus how we're making it in Chicago?
When I was in LA was like 94, 95, and this was actually we were touring with DJ Quick. This is when he dropped the Way Too Funky album, and I think that experience, I think we spent like almost a summer with him out there. That experience was seeing how he created. Like one morning, me and Tony were up early, and because they had a manager named Greedy Greg, and they all lived in a house. It was Second to None, DJ Quick, AMG, all of those guys were all there. And one morning, I remember getting up and just kind of like walking to the bathroom, and like back in Quick studio, you hear like this piano just like playing like Liberace. And me and Tony are looking at each other like, who the fuck is that? And we like peek around the corner, and it's like Quick sitting in like his boxer drawers just and we were just like, you know what I mean? And I would never expect that from him, because I heard a lot of his stuff and I knew he played a lot of instruments, and we just came in and just sat there and watched him. So I think the difference from the LA sound, of course, they were heavily influenced by a lot of Parliament, a lot of Funkadelic, a lot of Roger Troutman. Like, when I was going through Quick's records, he had everything by Roger Troutman.
Yeah.
Everything. So they're influenced by that kind of a sound. So I think there was a lot more 808, and if you went down south, you had MC Shy D and them who had the 808. So when I talk to producers now, and they're like, why are you using 808? And I'm like, 808 was used back in the day, so it's just resurfacing again. It's just like skinny jeans, you know what I mean? Bell bottoms and afros. It all regurgitates and comes back.
Never.
You heard him say never. Nope. but the sound definitely they kind of had their own sound, and I did adapt it and kind of learn a few things and try to dabble with that as well. But I was really influenced by the instrumentation that Quick had, and that kind of showed me. I was like, man, I need to cut out the sampling and learn how to play some chords and some progressions, so I can keep all my publishing and not have to deal with sample clearance issues.
Amina,
Quick. I just want to say this real quick that DJ Quick never got the props that he deserved for being a producer. It's all the success that he's had. He's
Quick is partly behind the success of Dr. Dre in a lot of ways. He's helped Dr. Dre in a lot of different things that people don't know about. So Quick, I think Quick likes it like that though. Quick doesn't seem to be the dude that's looking for the glory. He's cool with the check in the bank.
I'm not saying that he's looking for it. I'm just saying that he typically is left out when people are talking about great hip hop producers.
They always miss him in the history, and I think it partly plays into when he kind of came into the game. His tonation was very similar to Eazy-E, so people tried to write him. They tried to write him off as some. It's like when you had the West Side Sound coming out, and you had Psychodrama, Do or Die, and Twister. It was just like, okay, it all sounds the same, and people kind of played him like that, but I think what he had that was different from everybody else was he was the complete package. He produced everything. Yeah. He only had one other person, Rob Funkster, that played bass that came in and played with him. He did everything from the chimes to the everything. You know what I mean? And he did a lot of ghost production for Dre that people don't know about that he didn't get credit for. Wow. So he's also a very big practical joker. So I have to tell y'all later about the Spalaney's DJ Quick stories. He's a cool guy.
Combination, probably.
Yeah.
Amina, one thing that I love about your story is, and we talk about it in the movie, but let the people that might be watching this know about your history of you and where you came from and what you overcame to come to the place you are teaching Chicago hip hop in our fine city.
Well, I was born by a river. No, I'm kidding. I was born by a river. Everyone got so quiet.
Everybody's
is it the story of me missing the birth of hip hop?
No. Well, I'm just saying that you come from you. I mean, are you a dual citizen because you were born in another country?
No, so actually, I was born in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
I was born in the U.S., but I left when I was about 6, and I moved to Nigeria, where I went to elementary and high school. So yeah, I did in fact miss the birth of hip hop because, of course, when I left at 6, there was no hip hop yet. And when I came back, oh crap, this is the part where I date myself, right? But when I came back, there was this thing called hip hop.
What was on the radio?
What was on the radio?
What was on the radio?
So the first song I heard was the Pee Wee Herman. Yeah, that was well, actually, that was.
And you didn't give up. Way to fight through.
And I did not give up. And that's the obstacle that Risky was talking about. That's the hurdle that I climbed. No, I did come back to visit a couple of times over that 10 years that I was there. The first time I came back to visit, I heard Curtis Blow, The Breaks, and did not realize that this was a new genre of music. It was just a song on the radio. I came back in 1986. And can you take a message for me? Thank you.
It's Obama.
It's Obama. So I came back in 86. And the next year I was in school, and a guy from my poetry class approached me saying that he liked my poetry and asking if I would join his rap group. Of course, I really didn't know what a rap group was, but I needed friends. And so I agreed to join his rap group. And that was literally my introduction into hip hop. it was a really interesting time and a really interesting group because here it is, 1987. But I joined a rap group that was based in Roseland, and two of the members' dad was a deacon. So all of our material was like super clean. There were raps about Jesus. There were raps about how not to get STDs.
Whoa.
And a lot of Black history raps. But it was good for me because it was kind of a safe space, right? And I was able to meet people and get my chops up on stage. But they really groomed me really for the performer that I am today, because in that first year as a brand new rapper, we gigged every weekend throughout the summer. And we got paid, which is like, I think I cashed more checks then probably for shows than I do now. And we had just a really rigorous performance schedule. We got chased out of Market Park by a Klan rally.
That's one of the things that I was talking about that I wanted you to like expand on. That's pretty.
Was that it? Yeah. So you know, it's 1988. I think we're in Market Park, and at the time, Market Park was not the Market Park we know today, in that there were no Black or brown people allowed in Market Park. Which is around 71st and like California is the area that we were in. So we get an invitation because I said, you know, we were doing all the Black history festivals. We were there. And so we got invited to do this event at Market Park. It was the 25th anniversary of 25th commemorative anniversary of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. So we show up to Market Park and we're pulling up, and there's a crowd of people, and they were really animated. And they were all white. And there were some who were wearing white sheets. And then we saw a giant cross, and we were like, holy shit, I hope this is not where we're performing.
The Klan hired you to perform?
The Klan hired, no. As it turned out, the Black history, the Dr. King event was on the other side of the park. But at that time, there was a Klan rally going on one end. Wow. And we're like, okay, hold on. We shouldn't get out of the car. So we decide to go around the park. And then, of course, we see Black and brown people and I Have a Dream posters. And we're like, okay, this is it. So we get up there, we do our show. I'm in the trailer getting our check for $200 in 1988 for a bunch of teenagers. And as I'm getting the check, there's a knock on the door, and it's a guy from my group, and he's like, we got to go now. I look out the window, and the Klan rally is wrapping up. They finished their. Oh shit! You all right?
Yeah. Someone called the ambulance. I think Sean fell out.
Are you okay?
No, I'm fine.
Okay, he's fine. Okay, good. All right. And so I get the check and I look out, and there's the whole rally dispersing and like coming toward the edge of the park. Now, if you know Marquette Park, there's a lagoon in the middle. So they were on the other side of the lagoon. And when we arrived, let me also point out that the police did not allow us to park in the parking area where everyone else was parked. So we had to park a block or two away by the hospital. So, of course, now we're leaving. Everybody's running into their vehicles to leave the rally. The whole Klan rally is coming up to the edge, chanting, "Niggas go home." Wow. So we're like, we got to get out of here, and we got to get to our car. But in order to get to our car, we have to get out of the park. The neighborhood folk have now begun to gather. They're all around the park. There's yellow tape around the park to, I guess, maybe keep us in. Surely it wasn't going to protect us from the angry mob. But now the whole mob is chanting. The Klan rally is coming up. People are getting in their cars and leaving. There are 5 teenagers who need to get to our car that's a block away. There was a Channel 2 news truck that kind of followed us on the side and refused to give us a ride to our car. But we get to the edge of the park, and, you know, my friends are like, we just got to break through this group of people and like run to our car. And me only being in the US now for just like maybe over a year, am thinking like, one, I'm like, holy shit, I've only seen this in black and white movies on TV. I've never, like, I didn't think this existed anymore. And my friends are like, we're going through. And I'm like, no, I think you guys are being irrational. There's no way we're going to make it through this crowd. And they're like, we're going through the crowd. And so I followed them, and they broke through, and the crowd parted, and they yelled at us to go home. None of us got spat on, which was good, I guess. Yeah. And we just ran and jumped in our car, and there were 5 of us. So this was before like seatbelt requirements. So there were 2 people in the front, and like, no, actually there were 6 of us. There were 5 of us in the group. And then the driver, and the guys jumped in the back, and I laid across the back seat, and we just drove until we got to Western. And then we all got out of the car like, what the hell just happened? So yeah, I was chased by a full-on Klan rally. Wow. 5 teenagers, and everyone else, of course.
I have a question, and maybe you were looking at it the wrong way, because you know how the Klan is a Christian group,
right?
Maybe they just wanted to hear your Jesus raps. That you ever think about it that way? Like,
you know,
you just had the wrong rap at the wrong time. Okay.
See? They were doing their doctor. They were doing their doctor.
They wanted to learn about STDs too. Like, see,
yeah,
maybe they're misunderstood.
Look,
they
Carlos,
were jealous of your Jesus raps.
See,
I missed something you said earlier. Did you say this was a Trump rally?
See, Amina and them were doing their "I Have a Dream" rap, and that was not going.
That was not. Yeah,
they weren't going.
They were like, "Are they bumping that black shit again? Shut them down." But it was crazy. Like, you know, who would have imagined? And actually, I was a part of a performance. I'm a part of a performance group called Second Story. And, you know, you tell these true stories of yourself to an audience. And I shared this story last year, and it was probably the first time that I told it publicly. But it really made me reflect, because 20 years almost to the date, I was hosting Taking It to the Streets in Marquette Park.
Right.
So it's like 20 years, and I'm full circle, you know. There's black and brown people all through this park.
Plus, it was the Muslim
We're
Action
everywhere.
Council,
Yeah.
right?
So it was the Inner City Muslim Action Committee that throws this event, right? Yeah. So it's Muslims, it's black people, it's hip hoppers in Marquette Park 20 years later. And that really kind of gave me a moment of reflection, and how far we've come, if we can say that. Right. Nowadays, yeah.
How much of all of that actually fuels your activism?
I don't know that maybe it did fuel some activism. I was born an activist, right? And hip hop just gave me an avenue to do that. So I think, if anything, it probably, you know, I don't even know if there was a connection. I think it just reinforced for me that I was living in America. And, you know, I had grown up in a place where, although we spoke maybe different languages, you know, in Nigeria, like I'm Yoruba, so I speak Yoruba. But in Nigeria, they're Igbo people and they're Hausa people, and they're different. There are over 1,000 languages spoken just in Nigeria, but we're all the same skin color. So we have differences, but we still get along. And now I'm in America, where I see that we don't have the same skin color, and I guess we don't get along. And that was like, it was real for me at that moment, because I'd always heard about it and I'd seen it, but I had never been a part of it. I had never been discriminated against. I didn't know what racism really was. And this was institutionalized. You know, this wasn't just some kids. I think my mom and I had, like, some people yell "niggas go home" when we were in Cicero. back in the day waiting for a bus. You know, and
You
so
guys-
that was probably the first time. We should go back home. That's what we should do.
That's what we should do.
We should all go back home. How about that?
That's right.
But
You guys remember when the Klan was going to have a rally in Cicero, and then the cops put up this fence, and all my Brown brothers started like practicing their drive-bys, and then the cops were like, "Okay, we need to go ahead and cancel this." You saw all these lowriders just going like, practicing their slow motions and stuff. Like they're like, "You must be out your damn mind."
that's right.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that was in the early 2000s.
I got to bring it back for a second, Chris. So one of my favorite records that you produced and were on, and it's just kind of an off the wall record, was Johnny Portachenko's Puerto Rico.
Wow.
Puerto Rico. I love
Puerto Rico. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
you know
a good
what?
one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It is a good one. Yeah, shout out to Johnny if he's checking in. Yeah, that was an interesting time for me because actually how I got connected with Johnny was through Amina. Amina was heading up the rap division at a record company downtown called Spire Records. And Johnny was basically what they were doing. They were offering kind of like loose distribution deals to artists with, you know, like short runs of 200, 500, 1,000. And Amina, you know, she was always campaigning for me wherever she was. She'd be like, she'd tell me, she'd be like, my boyfriend's a producer. And everybody'd be like, yeah, she'll hear producer. And Johnny would kind of, and if you guys know Johnny, you know, Johnny was kind of like the same way, like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But we ended up connecting, and Johnny came by the house, and yeah, and this was prior to, because if you guys know his field in martial arts, I had no idea that this dude could eliminate a room of 100 people with a pen in 5 seconds. I'm serious. You look him up, he has this tactical, practical pen thing. So I had no idea. You know, Johnny's shorter than me, so I used to talk a whole lot of shit to him. And you know, he'd come in the studio and we were
Right, there's no Puerto Rican ninjas. Get out of here.
Seriously, no idea whatsoever. And I think the first time we were in the studio when we recorded the Puerto Rico joint and my new shit, I was using a Vestax 8-track recorder. I was kind of moving up. I was done with my 4-track recorder, and I had this digital recorder with like, I don't know, it was a Fostex, yeah, and I probably had like, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes of recording. So I thought I was.
I think it was 8.
Okay,
8 minutes of
about
recording.
8 minutes of recording. So every time I recorded something, I had to dump it off, and it had to be a final mix. But with Johnny, we were working on that, and while we were working on the Puerto Rico joint, he was telling me, he was like, well, you know, my mom's Puerto Rican, and he told me this story about how he whipped like a couple of dudes' ass out in Puerto Rico, and he's telling me this story, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, but dude, you're like, yay, hi, you know what I mean? And he was like, no, I literally, and then as I started to find out, and he told me about his father being, you know, a grandmaster and all this other stuff. And I was like,
his father was a sensei.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, you like serious. But the Puerto Rico joint, it just kind of, it organically came. Johnny just came over. He always knows what he wants. You know, he was like, I wanted to sound like this. I want this, you know, so I helped him add in the chorus and other stuff. But he pretty much knew how to do it. I mean, that song, we probably recorded it in a week. I mixed it like 2 weeks later. And the thing I liked about Johnny is when, you know, he wasn't like, back in the days, cats wanted to just have a demo so they could let their girlfriends or their boys hear. Johnny, after he was done with the 2 songs, we hadn't even done a full 4 songs yet. He was like, all right, I'm going to get it pressed up on wax in 2 weeks. And
He did.
I was like, wow. And he did it. And the artwork, he wrapped himself up in like some like foil paper and put like this weird hat on and shit. And he popped over and he was like, here's the records. And I'm like, wow, dude. Like, you know, and then it just kind of went from there. He did the B-Movie Fiends thing. And I continued to work with him. I think the last song I did with Johnny was Box Cutter. And we did that. And that was released on Gravel Records.
Yeah, great record. Man, see, Johnny's an underrated kid, man. Like, he's always had a good work ethic. He's been a good MC. And And it's funny because I think that first EP, he wasn't Johnny Portachinko yet.
No, he was
Agent Johnny Quest.
Agent Johnny Quest, that's right.
Yeah, Agent Johnny. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yep. But yeah, he went that, and I think he kind of led the way for a lot of like the Verbal Kents and the Mike Ones, because I met Mike One through Johnny, Max from Crew Life, Max Arciniega, the actor. I met him through there. All them guys used to come through, and we'd hook up that little 8-track recorder and record as much stuff as we could and pump out as much music. But the interesting thing with Box Cutter with Johnny is he had hit me up. He was like, yeah, man, I'm finna do this song with Gravel. I want you to produce it. I was like, all right. I sent him the track, and the entire song, he never wrote any of the lyrics down. He told me as he would ride back and forth from work, he would just add 2 more lines onto the whole thing. And I think Box Cutter, I mean, like, I love all of his work, but Box Cutter to me was one of his best lyrically songs. He just kind of went all in. And I think that was around the time when 9/11 happened, and it was the whole thing with box cutters and all that. So that's where he came with the title when he did the song. So yeah, real dope.
And that was on the Chicago project, right?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Dope.
Yep.
Did you remember Mike had a record with Thaw 4, and I think it ended up being on the B Movie Fiends. Did you produce that, the Street Life record?
No, that wasn't me. That was DJ Immaculate from Rex.
Oh, Immaculate did that record. Okay, yeah. Super dope.
Oh yeah.
Who was Mike's DJ?
This guy named Risky Business.
Oh, don't connect me with that dude.
We had some great records and some great shows.
Yeah, son, world famous kid.
That's right.
Yeah, no, I really love like that era. There was some great sounds. You were a big part of it, and all the Spalaneys. I guess, you know, a lot of it was like underground tapes, and Spalaney's was like. It's funny, you guys like were touring and had a lot of things, a lot of wheels moving, and was a group that was like everybody was like, oh, this is it. They're gonna be, you know. It's funny because a lot of the groups from and for people watching that don't know, an area of Chicago, the direct west side is these 2 neighborhoods, suburban neighborhoods called Maywood and Bellwood. They call it the Woods.
Yeah.
And it's directly next to Chicago. I mean, it's right. It's all the same people. It's part of it. It's not considered anything but Chicago, pretty much, outside of it being its own cities. But it's literally 15 minutes from downtown. I mean, it's door to door. It's right there. So that being said, it's still its own thing. And it seems like the work that came out of Maywood was so ridiculous. It was so influential, and it's so Chicago hip hop, or the Woods, Bellwood, and Maywood. And everybody that was putting stuff out was putting out some of the best quality, and felt like, shit, the Woods is what's going to put Chicago on for a while. Like it seemed like everything that was coming on that felt like it was going to make it was Spalaney's, Rubber Room, you know, even like Fully G. Elements of Nature was based out of there, was a mix of Chicago and Woods people. So much quality stuff coming out of there. And I mean, it was all surfacing right down to WNUR and
absolutely.
And Kevin Beecham. Kevin Beecham, what did you think of all this stuff coming out of the Woods?
No, that was crazy. I remember my very first time recognizing it, because you know I was Spo's first manager.
Yep.
So I was managing Spo as a solo artist. I was producing him too. I was his producer and his manager. He was just kind of branching off. I was kind of moving away from production and doing more of the management stuff. And he told me he was going to audition to be in this group. And this, you know, when I first heard it, I was kind of against the idea, but I was like, well, at least go check it out. And so, like, you know, he's like, I'm gonna go audition for this group. I'm like, yeah, it's probably a bad idea. You got a great solo thing going, but go see what happens. And so, like, you know, I came to his house the next day to hear what happened. He played me the first song they did, Welcome to the Rubber Room. And I was like,
ooh, that's the joint.
Go do it. Solo career on hold. Like it was immediate. It was like I came there with the whole idea, the whole ride there. I was thinking how to talk him out of it. I hadn't heard anything yet. But I was like, I'm gonna talk him out of this whole idea. I'm gonna listen to it, let him tell his little story. Then I'm gonna shut him down. I played a song. I was like, yeah, man, join the group. We're done here. The group song right now. I'm leaving. Like it was like undeniable when I just heard that first time, and then like from there, I think it was more like lower links. But I started seeing like everyone else, and Children of Reality, and Spalaney, and so yeah, it was really like an amazing time to discover all that stuff for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I'll never forget that day because I was so because he lived he was still living like in Highland Park then, and I was living out in Waukegan. So I had like a 15-minute ride. That whole ride, I was thinking how to tell him no. I'm the manager. Like 3 minutes of the song, I was like, yeah.
We're very glad you didn't tell him
Shut
no.
that down. Right.
You didn't interfere with history. Good job, brother.
And I remember,
I know when I'm wrong. It was undeniable. Certain things you just know is right, and it was right when I heard it. So yeah.
another thing that we're trying to do with Midway too is make sure that we let people talk about where they're from. I think it's very important to show the diversity of the neighborhoods, that Chicago's not one big clump. There's so many different cultures and styles that come within a neighborhood. And that's why we want to make sure when we produce this film that we're very adamant on, or I'm very adamant on the idea of making sure people are well aware that Spalaney's and everybody, while they are Chicago hip hop, they came out of the woods, and the woods is important. And the woods' story should be told within this, like, so people that are, it's big because you have kids right now that are sitting in Maywood that love Chicago hip hop, and they can be influenced knowing that these great people came from here and they're a part of it too. The same way you want to inspire and make sure that people understand that Psalm 1 has done all these great things, and she's a girl from Inglewood. So it's very important that people understand that they don't get. There's so much like we really talk a lot about Inglewood in this because there's so much bashing of Inglewood by the national media, and there's so many that's so not true. It's such a narrative that they use to sell their papers and whatever. And I get it. I mean, it is what it is. It's the way the world works. People need stories and narratives, and they need good and evil and all kinds of things to tell stories. But I think it's very important that the young men and women that are growing up in Inglewood understand that there's plenty of positive role models that have come out of Inglewood or whatever neighborhood. If you're coming out of the low end, if you're coming out of Roseland, if you're coming out of the north side, if you're coming out of Uptown, any of these places, that all these people are from your neighborhood too. They went through the same struggles that you went through, or might similar, and they did it. So there's no reason you can't do that yourself. I mean, and I love Psalm as an example because Psalm is a young black female who has, if I'm not correct, she has a PhD, or she has a very high degree in chemistry.
Chemistry,
She's a chemist, and she just happens to be one of the best rappers you're ever going to hear. She's one of the best attitude people you'll meet. She's a genius, and she's a beautiful woman, and I want people to make sure that they understand that, yes, she came from Inglewood, and guess what? You can too. I want people to take pride in the neighborhoods as a whole as we do the city.
Yep. And you know what? They kind of add on to that, and I remember, and it was very important in Angie's clip when she talked about how the train connected a lot of the hip hop artists. For us with Spalaney's, we would take the Congress Blue Line, and we were thirsty because truthfully at that time when we were out in the woods, a lot of the music was influenced by a lot of just gangbanging. People was gangbanging on wax. You think they do it now? They were doing it back then, but we had a total different style and flavor to what we were looking at. We were influenced by the Far Sides and the East Coast rap and all the other stuff that was going on. So when we were out there, we had like a place called the Rec Center out there, and we perform, we do our stuff. People looking at us like, that ain't nothing. You ain't talking about GDs and vice lords and none. So, you know, they kind of play us to the left. So we would get on the blue line religiously whenever we could, when we weren't working, or a lot of us wasn't working anyways. And we would take the Congress and we would get off at Damon. And we would then take the Damon bus all the way into Wicker Park, not knowing that we could have stayed on the blue line and took the shit all the way around and got off the division right there. I kid you not, we did. I kid you. You can ask them for like a year, 2 years straight. We did that. And we started when we would travel from the woods and come to the elbow room. Every night we left from the elbow room, it would always take us 2 hours to get home because we get lost. And I was the person driving, and everybody else in the car was drunk and asleep. Seriously, and I would have to stop. You know, back then there wasn't no Google Maps or nothing. You had to stop to the gas station and be like, "Man, how do I get back out to Bellwood?" And they're like, "Bellwood, where's it at?" Right. And then I'd have to say, "Oak Park," and they'd be like, "Oh, Oak Park. Okay, you need to go this way, that way." But that was really it was really fulfilling to us because, you know, when we came into the city, we would go to Lit X, we would go to Triple X, you know, we would freestyle right there at the freaking corner where that Starbucks is. We would sit out there and freestyle for hours. You know, that's when I connected with Spo. That's when I connected with Butchie, you know, Pathfinder. Just, you know, Kevin, you know, Rubber Room, just everybody. Even though we would probably connect with each other more when we were in the city of Chicago and less when we were out in the woods. I would barely see Aaron and Chauncey and any of them. But when we were in the city, I'm like, "What's up, dog? What you doing? You know, you from Second and Lake, you out here, you know," and we would always meet, and we always found that creative space coming into the city to do it. And then the other thing would be, you know, we did a lot of like traveling and showcases and all that. And, you know, like you said, Risky, we thought too, we were like, man, we are right there. We were doing showcases for Giant Warner Brothers and touring and doing all other kind of stuff. But, you know, everything just kind of fell apart, from publishing deals to, you know, almost having a deal. And, you know, it was award time. And they were like, you know, we were actually going to sign the Giant Warner Brothers around the same time that they signed Pudgy the Fat Bastard. But they told us, they said, if you guys sign, you're going to sit on the shelf for at least 7 to 10 years before we even release you, because they were pushing him. So we were like, nah. In hindsight, probably should have sat on the shelf for 7 to 10 years. He came out after Pudgy the Fat Bastard. We had Russell Simmons offer us in Doc Brown's office $63,000 for signing with Def Jam. So me, Cordell, Tony Casey, we looking at each other like, yeah, we done made it. Doc Brown's like, nah. At that time, an R&B singer's budget for signing was $150,000. So he told Russell on the phone, if you can't give me $150,000, you can't have him. Russell hung the phone up. We were like, oh, damn. Me and Tony was ghostwriting for a group called Diamonds in the Rough, who was signed to Sony.
Wow.
Now we were done with the album. I mean, we slept in the studio for 2 months, done with the album. We had we were getting ready to sign our publishing contract with EMI. Everything was there. And then the label pulled the rug from up underneath the group because they found out back at that time it was just spins. And they had connections with people at college who were giving them kind of like fake spins and having, what was it, the BDS or whatever. So they were showing all of this. So once they found this out, they were like, nah. So there goes our publishing deal. So like I said, we were always on the cusp of right there. But like I said, I wouldn't take any of it back or change any of it because I learned a lot. I formed a good brotherhood with these guys. Like I said, we're brothers from, you know, different mothers, but the same thing to the day I die. They're like my Ace Boon Coons. You know, they call me at any time. We talk to each other, and it's not on no music. It's on, you, my brother, how's the family, have things going. But we were always just right there, but never could get over the hump, you know.
I don't think a lot of people know. A lot of people just know that time in hip hop, you know, in Chicago, I mean, elsewhere too, but it's like a real underground time. A lot of things happening. But you guys were, like you said, working out there with, you know, DJ Quick, you know, you had your story about, you know, connecting out here in Paisley Park with Prince. You guys were doing things with like national artists, even on the underground level. That was happening way back then. Those are like great stories to hear.
Yes. And if you haven't heard the Paisley Park Prince story, you need to go to the YouTube channel.
Yes.
That's a great
Midway,
story.
go to youtube.com/Midway Documentary Shy and take a look at that.
There's something special.
That story.
Anytime Tony
You'll
Baines
hear
is
about the
telling story.
tambourine.
You hear about the tambourine.
Little tambourine.
Tony Baines is a master. Tony Baines is a master storyteller.
Yes.
Master.
And what's
He-
funny,
he-
Chris,
He
what's
knows
funny,
it all.
Chris, is when he's telling that story, I look at your face and you're just like reminiscing. You're like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, yeah. And as he
They
was
were this
saying,
big. They were this big.
yeah, and as he was saying things, I was just like, damn, that's right. Because he was, because at that time we were young, we were drunk a little bit and all that. And Casey and Cordell wasn't old enough. So when me and Tony went upstairs to Erotic City, them two had to go back to the hotel. So they didn't catch any of that. So and then when Tony was like, and it seriously was like the place was immaculate. Everything was silver, shiny. He was sitting on his throne.
Dude, I don't think it was in the edit. I don't think it was in the edit that Ryan put out, but wasn't he talking about the lollipop or something?
No,
Yeah.
that's in the edit.
Yeah, it's in the edit. Yeah.
That's in the edit? Okay.
The lollipops and it was crazy. It was crazy. Something I would never ever forget. Yeah,
That's amazing.
I
That
was
was
on
the,
the floor
the-
when that
the-
came out. I was on the floor. I called Ryan right away. I was like, "What do we do with this? Like, I'm peeing on the floor. I can't make it to the bathroom."
Tell us about the story, the prank story with DJ Quick you told us to remind you about.
Oh, Quick. Well, Quick he pranks and plays a lot. And actually, while we were out there, so we were out there in the summertime. It was about the 4th of July, and they had disposable money, so they were buying fireworks like crazy. So we were all sitting out in front of their manager Greedy Greg's house. We were talking. They were barbecuing, and Quick, people were driving past, and Quick would like throw M80s and shit in their car. Yeah, no. But on a serious note, he did that. He got into some legal trouble because he threw one in the car and somebody ended up having an accident.
Oh wow!
So it all kind of
Really?
cleared out.
You don't say.
Yeah, it all cleared out. No, he cleared out. It was cool. So he cleared that up. But while we were out there, he did the same thing to me, and we were like standing there, and he threw something by my foot, and it like went off, and I like jumped, and we were all like, and I got West Side Chicago on him, and I got up in his face. I was like, "Look, man, I will whoop your motherfucking ass." You know what I mean? And they had to like literally pull me off of him. And I was like, "Dude, I'm not here for your games." You know what I'm saying? I said, "You can do that shit you think is funny." I'm like, "But you throwing something, you could have blew my leg up." You know what I mean? Yeah. So he was like, he was still kind of being cocky. He was just like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, all right, that's cool. So 2 days later, me and Tony used to always play this little joke on people. So, and how it would go, and I told Tony, I said, well, Quick came into the room. We were all sitting there watching TV or whatever, watching the MTV Raps or something. And then I leaned over to Quick and I said, "Hey, Quick," I said, "ask Tony who won the race between him and his father last week." And he looked at me and I said, "Ask her." And then Quick looked over and he said, "Hey, Tom, who won the race between you and your father?" And Tony got real serious and he looked at Quick and he was like, "The fuck, man? That's some kind of joke. My daddy ain't got no legs." And the look on Quick's face was like, his facial expression, everything just dropped. And he was almost intense. He was like, oh man, I'm so sorry, dog. I'm so sorry." I mean, he kept, and we held this for like 2 hours. He kept apologizing. And then afterwards, I was like, "You dumbass, his daddy got legs." I said, "That's from you throwing that fucking M80 at my foot." So that's how I got him back. I said, "I'm gonna make you feel it emotionally. You made me feel it physically. You gonna feel it emotionally." Yeah. And we would do that. We would do that prank with a lot of people between me and him, back and forth.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's how I got him back.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's
We used
great.
to play the dozens when I was in the army. We used to play the dozens, and we used to talk about what my man's mom all the time. We used to go off, and then we found out she was really dead. Like I was like, "Ooh, sorry."
Man,
Not good.
Yeah,
crazy. We used to tour with Also, when we were out in LA, it used to be a management company, and there's still, it used to be called We Jam Productions, and they helped us a lot with a lot of funding and getting us out. Also, 10 City, house music, 10 City.
Yeah.
Byron, all them, they were an integral part of Spalaney's because they were also managed by Doc Brown. So like when we didn't have money, they put the money up for us to go places and put us up in hotels and all that. So big ups to 10 City on that. But we would go with We Jam. We would play a lot of practical jokes and stuff in the hotel rooms. They would take like a whole can of shaving cream and put it on your side of the bed. You know what I'm saying? You go and lay down it. They would just do all kind of weird stuff. Hot sauce in your throat while you sleeping, snoring. And one time in are you guys familiar with Flair? He's Flair, no Triducent Siri calls himself now.
Yeah.
But Flair, he used to be with a group called Mad Infinite Styles. Rest in peace to Aaron. He passed away last year. But I remember one time we were at the ASCAP convention in LA, and we had everybody coming through the room. You would have thought that we were like on already. Conscious Daughters came through. The Alcoholics, Taj, J-Ro would always come through. They, fire up something, drink with us, whatever. But I remember one time, Flair, he was only like 17. He got so wasted. He woke up, he threw up in the bed, and then he just covered it up with his pillow and lay right back on top of it and went to sleep. Who does that?
That's rock star life.
Yeah, someone who doesn't want to get up.
Yeah, it was. Oh man, it was
some good sleeps.
But yeah, some good stories. Good stories.
I can probably account for Mike One doing that a few times himself.
Oh yeah, probably while standing up.
Probably while on the short bus.
And that well, that's a Tuesday at Juanita's house.
That's dope.
So, Amina, so you've been teaching hip hop and sonic history at Columbia for a long time.
This is actually I'm starting my 3rd year. So
that's quite a while, actually.
That's a long time.
That's a long time. That's awesome. What is some of the most because like you said, you deal with a lot of it's introductory. How are the kids how do they accept this information? Being that you're teaching a lot of the older stuff and the generation, you have the generation gap. How are they receiving all the older? How do they, when you play the older hip hop, not just Chicago hip hop, but the older style hip hop? How do you feel that they're receiving this, stuff from the very basic stuff to the very lyrical stuff of the '90s to where we're at today?
Yeah. They receive it pretty well. I mean, I think, we use a lot of videos because I think the visual aspect of it is really important.
Sure.
If you want to know what 1983 was like, you have to see 1983. The videos from that era are really grainy. And so I think the biggest turnoff for them is probably the quality of the video doesn't keep their attention that long. And they get really bored with it looks funny. But because it's a history class, I think they're more receptive to the older music. So they receive it. One of the tie-ins, that I like to use with hip hop and especially using the older music is how the overall message has never changed in hip hop since the beginning. We're still rhyming about the same things that we were rhyming about in the beginning and with the creation of hip hop that we're rhyming about today. We're still rapping about inequality. We're still rapping about the same social justice issues. We still got the braggadocio element of it that is hip hop that's still there. But I think they can connect history and see themselves in it. So, they know a lot of these stories, what happened back then. A lot of them are interested because they love hip hop now. And they want to know more about the history of this thing that they love now.
The foundation.
So for that, they're more interested. I do want to know how this culture got its name, or I do want to learn about who did this before. Some of the things that I'm finding that they aren't making connections on is they're not understanding hip hop as a holistic culture. So they don't understand that there's a DJ and an MC and a graph writer and a b-boy and a knowledge person there to bring you this thing called hip hop. They don't even really connect these elements. So they're learning that. And then I think they also get a greater understanding of what community means to hip hop, and that hip hop is more than just rocking a show, but it's about community building and creating opportunities where there maybe aren't any. And so those are some of the greater things that I get excited when I see them catching on to, more so than, who invented the scratch or whatever, which is important. But when I see them making the connections to their lives and understanding that what they've been told is hip hop isn't really hip hop, and it's so much bigger than that, that's where we get our aha moments.
What about the Source magazine?
Oh yeah, the Source magazine. So actually, and that's coming up. So this week, Chris is coming in, and every semester he brings in his collection, part of his collection of Source magazines from the early 90s and 2000s. And each student gets an issue, and they're like charged with looking through it and finding these different things that I have them find. But it's really interesting to watch them go through these old Source magazines. We're like, this is before blogs. This is how we got information about what was going on in the hip hop world.
Still cigarette advertisements.
Right, cigarette ads. They're like, I can't believe they had cigarette ads, or look at the clothes, or
why were they clothes so big?
Or the Columbia 12 CDs for $1 thing.
Did any of them go, who's Human Wreck, and why has this album been advertised for 13 years?
Exactly.
Well, even before that, wasn't he called Brain Man?
Wow. That's the one thing. That's the one thing in the Source. For like 8 years, it was like at the back. The only thing that was consistent in the Source was a damn ad for the fucking Human Wreck album, and I was like, when is this fucking thing gonna drop?
Right. And everybody was interested because he looked like Redman, and it said Eric Sermon on there. So.
Did he ever? Was that like Redman, like alter ego? Was he gonna come out and do like some Garth Brooks kind of like?
You know what? It's funny. I ended up getting the goddamn album.
It finally came out.
Did it? Did he sound like Redman?
No.
No, really? Was he?
It was influenced. Redman had produced a few tracks on it too.
Okay.
Rock Wilder was on it and stuff like that. So
maybe the Source was the build up to Kickstarter too.
Very well could be.
It's very interesting on how they receive the information. I was very curious because kids today are so used to receiving information in different ways, and something like a magazine is such an interesting way to teach. I mean, I guess it's like in a way, it's almost like a textbook, right?
Yeah. And it's just like a 1 day, 1 or 2 day activity that we do. But it's just really seeing them interacting with this magazine. Also, them being surprised about some of the articles. Like they're like, oh, there's an article about politics, or there's an article about, drug addiction in the community. Like there were some really serious articles in there as well. They talked about, they were surprised that there were so many video game ads. And a lot of the advertising just struck them because now you can just skip an ad or bypass it or not pay attention to it. And like the thing was full of ads. So
that's a really cool teaching tool.
It is.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
For hip hop, that's a really good idea to have them go, because that's like you said. I mean, that was our internet back in the day. I remember looking very forward to getting those, going to the bookstore, going to a music store, and getting the new monthly issue of it. And you'd first go through and you'd see what new albums are coming out. Then you'd go and check and see what the reviews were of what you should be buying. I've got a stack of them somewhere.
You'd go back to the fat tape section to see what was bubbling, what got turned in, and what 12 inches were going to be hot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now
And
it's
then
all blogs.
Now it's all blogs, and now there's no, and that's the problem with blogs. While there is some great blogs and great blog writers out there,
right.
The issue is, again, it goes back to the quality control, because you're letting everybody have the ability to do it. So you got to sift through so much garbage to get anything of value.
Yep, true that.
Yeah,
it's such a waste of time. I kind of, it's, you got to have a balance. I mean, it'll eventually, everything rises. The cream always rises to the top, and everything eventually surfaces. That being said, we're in that transition stage to where right now a lot of people have access to do things they really shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Yeah, and that's that's a problem that I found just with hip hop in general. There's a document called the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it was drafted in, I think, 2001. I want to say, spearheaded by the Temple of Hip Hop. And then it has like all these hip hop, I think 300 hip hop pioneer signatures on it. And it's an 18 principle document that was presented to the New York City Council and then to the United Nations. And it's it sets out these principles by which hip hop should be practiced or followed. And, part of the problem right now is the fact that the door is wide open. And anybody can come in, and you don't have to pass a test. You don't have to do anything. You can just say, I'm hip hop or I rap, and that's okay. And, I always joke with my students. I say, man, I make a mean taco, but I am in no position and have no authority to open a Mexican restaurant and say, yeah, I'm selling this Mexican food that I made because I can buy the ingredients and I can sell it. And that's part of the problem with hip hop.
We live in a
Anybody
society
can come in.
You're
And
right,
they can
Amina.
say, I'm hip hop, and there's no criteria. And I like this document because it lays out some things. And yeah, it's not a Bible. Like, all the half the hip hoppers I know never even heard of it. But it's a really cool document. And when you look at it, it kind of helps refocus on what we should classify as like how does it become hip hop? What qualifies this to be hip hop, to fall under this umbrella?
And before, we didn't need the document because it was just something that was taught to each other, and it was part of the society. And you let people learn.
Knew it.
You knew it. You didn't need to be told.
Right. Right.
And another problem, I think, is, and I don't care if this sounds insensitive, but we live in a society today where we give trophies out for second place. And I'm sorry, you need to have people being accountable for being good or not good at something. How do you know you suck if you don't have people telling you you suck? I'm sorry.
Exactly.
And again, I don't want to be insensitive, but I really don't care. Like, if you're not good at rapping, then
So you
try
really
something
do want
else.
to be insensitive.
Well, I mean, you have to have people you have to have a level of like as I told Amina, we talked, and I think I said this in her class. I said, when we came up in hip hop, and it just flat out isn't there anymore, you were tested.
Right.
So if you were rapping or DJing, you would get called out if you were whack.
Yep.
And you had two options. You moved to something else, or you got better.
Exactly.
We interviewed Al Tampa recently, and he was talking about he had a close relationship with the late Kaiser, graffiti artist, and Tampa was out bombing, and he hit a place, and he had his own little style or whatever, and then he would get crossed out, and it would say, "Do better."
Damn.
And, and then he knew it was Kaiser doing it. And Kaiser wasn't trying to son him or he was trying to make him better. He was trying to inspire him to be better. And Kaiser was also protecting the art. And I think it's up to us, again, to protect the art that we are. The culture and the art needs gatekeepers and needs people, and we need people to be held responsible for their actions. And if something's whack, then speak the fuck up.
Right. And unfortunately, it's been so corporatized and become a business and become so commercial that the power that we had somehow got lost to the industry, who's now dictating what should be hip hop. And that's where they're hearing it from. So
me and Sean were having these arguments not arguments, but I think we were agreeing with each other. But we were talking about how, remember a year ago or 2 years ago, all these hip hoppers were so upset with Iggy Azalea being in, and I think it was between Azalea Banks and Iggy.
I remember that conversation. Yeah.
And it was Azalea, and it was Iggy Azalea getting nominated for a hip hop award or for some MTV award or something. It was hip hop, and I'm like, hey, why does anybody in real hip hop care about anything that she's getting nominated for? Because what she's getting nominated for pop records, even though it may say hip hop, that is not our hip hop, and those are pop records. And she knows what she's making. She's quite aware of it. She's not selling out. She's selling out arenas. So, like, she knows exactly when she's putting her cadences together, and with the producers. And T.I. was the brains behind all of that. T.I. knew exactly what he was doing, and you can say whatever you want about any of those people. T.I. is one of the greatest hip hop legends ever, in my opinion. He's one of the illest Southern rappers to ever, he's one of the illest rappers, period. I love T.I. But he's a genius. He knows how to make money, and she's not doing hip hop. The problem lies in what people are calling hip hop,
right? Which all stems from the corporate world and everything else, because it's just like, there's always been pop music since forever. Pop music has always taken influence or taken pieces from rock music or from soul music and took those little things to make pop music. And it's only been, in the last 15 or 20 years that there's new pop music that's influenced heavily by hip hop from being around.
Yeah, I mean,
so a lot of the stuff that's out there isn't, obviously we know it's not hip hop. People call it hip hop, but it's not.
Taylor Swift rapping. I mean, like, she's not a rap artist, but she's putting raps in her music. Like, that it's not like the novelty that we saw in the 80s where you would see either the Super Bowl Shuffle, or you would see like Rodney Dangerfield would put out a record, right? A rap record, Rodney raps. Like, they were novelty records, but no one considered them hip hop records. We bought them because they were funny or stupid or whatever, but they weren't considered a real hip hop record, so to speak. And again, like you said, Ryan, the pop is going to take its influence from whatever's hot, because pop at the end of the day, it means exactly what it is. It's popular culture. Like in the 80s, so many real rockers were so ticked off at certain types of pop music because they had guitarists and different things like that and all the pop music was heavy rock influence, and even got almost like metal to a certain point, but they were selling it to pop audiences, and they were bubblegum packaging it. So then they went through the same thing. The rock culture and community went through the same stuff we're going through now.
All we have to do is read 2 words: Metallica, Nickelback. That's it. That's your argument, like, sewn up in 2 words. Metallica came out and just killed it, and then Nickelback bastardized it and made a bunch of money off of it.
I do think that
Carlos,
hip hop. I do think that hip hop is a little different in the sense that hip hop is a whole culture. It's a movement. Like, it's more than just a genre. So it's really difficult to compare, because I hear over at Columbia, at the college, I hear a lot of comparisons between hip hop and jazz and other genres of music. And I get it, but at the same time, hip hop is really unique in the sense that it's this whole defined culture and movement. It's defined as, our collective consciousness. Like, it's so much greater than just this genre.
You're 100% right with that. I was speaking specifically towards the music
aspect.
I understand
aspect of it, but as we were saying though, with like teaching your students, it's like that's the one thing that if you've grown up, if you're 18 now, you weren't alive to it, just because it's changed so much. Not to sound like the old person, but that's exactly what it is. You went to, I think O-Type, Jeff Baraka said it in one, in our interview, is, you know, there wasn't that many around. And when you were hip hop and you saw somebody else, you're like, oh, that's like, we connect like that because like, it's, you know, it's an extended family. And that's one of the,
it was part of a definitive tribe.
right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Not to sound, you know, elitist is the wrong word, but not, you know, if you hip hop, that's what makes hip hop so amazing, is that you're part of this extended family with everybody, and there's no other. That's why it's a culture, and that's why people who aren't into hip hop don't understand that.
Yeah,
exactly.
When we it reminds me of when we took our trip to the Ivory Coast. Myself, Coolout, Chris, and Ange 13 became cultural envoys, and in 2010, and were sent by the State Department to a residency in the Ivory Coast, and we met with artists all throughout this country. It's a French-speaking country. None of us spoke French, but I like to say they spoke French, we spoke English, but we all spoke hip hop. Because when the beat dropped, they didn't understand a word of our rhymes, but in the best interpretation they could, they were singing the hooks with us. They were throwing their hands up, and it was like they felt us. Yeah, it was like we spoke the same language, but the language was hip hop, and that's all we needed. And it has the power to do that. You know, it's one of the greatest unifying forces that I've seen across, you know, language, abilities, race, gender,
everything.
You're all welcome in a hip hop space.
In my opinion, hip hop is, like you said, it's beyond unique. And again, this is merely my opinion, but I believe hip hop is more because of the cultural aspect of it, the way it is a culture as opposed to just the music. It's more powerful than any other genre that's ever existed. And I'm not saying, you know, I mean, it's had a long evolution of development in the way music is made, from sampling to progressions, and from progressions in the way we have cadences to chord progressions in music, and all these different types of development of the music. That being said, rock, jazz, blues, soul, country, whatever genres that are out there are very in the box with the type of people that listen to them. Rock is clearly very, very Caucasian, I'll say, because I'm gonna say white because so many other types of people. There's limited black rock groups. There's not a ton of them, and there's not a overwhelming amount of people that black people that listen to rock music religiously, so to speak.
Right.
Hip hop breaks down all those rules, because it gets same thing with country. Same thing with jazz music. Jazz music seems to be, well, jazz is a little bit closer to hip hop, but R&B is way more obviously listened to mostly by black listeners, and it's mostly performed by black artists, so on and so forth. But hip hop is such a wide, and it goes worldwide. Like there's no country music in other parts of the world, really.
And there's no part of the world that doesn't have hip hop.
Ultimately there's no part of the world that doesn't, and they're not really playing rock music in maybe there's everything's everywhere in some tiny little basement somewhere, but overall as a whole you're not going to find a country scene in Antarctica, but you're gonna find hip hop.
Right.
Yep.
True
that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's broken down so many.
Not that we're looking for country in different countries, though. We're always looking for hip hop, but we're not always looking for Garth Brooks. I mean, he might be killing it somewhere. You don't know.
That's true.
Listen, at the end of the day, too, Chicago, and I've said this, I think I probably said this on here before, and I repeat this, but it's important. Chicago was a city that was designed to divide in the most literal way. The city planners designed this city to segregate and separate.
Right.
Hip hop is so powerful that it was able to defeat the city's plan for segregation. because it's able to bring Hispanics and whites and blacks and people of Asian descent in parks and communities together to peacefully party and have a good time, or educate, or uplift. And it happens
unless
every day.
there's a Klan rally.
Unless there's a Klan. And actually, I think I want to say around maybe 2006 or so. I could be wrong, but young people in Senegal used hip hop to overthrow the government.
Oh yeah.
So people are using hip hop. And I found, interestingly enough, outside of the U.S., more people are really using hip hop as it was originally intended, as a response to conditions.
Yep.
And I find that very rewarding to know.
And you're kind of starting to see a little bit of that come back around now.
Yeah.
But I mean, just you know, clearly that was the corporations that killed all that shit.
Exactly.
In the mid 90s. But just think now, if we started having more records like a Self-Destruction, or We're All in the Same Gang, or even, you know, if Public Enemy, Public Enemy still makes great music. They still make really, really damn good albums as far as I'm concerned. But obviously we're not going to hear them. People aren't going to hear them on mainstream radio or streaming services or anything like that. So it's...
And to add to that, I think the same thing, and I'd seen something that happened like maybe like late last year, and I think Kendrick Lamar was on tour with Future, and they said that the whole freaking arena cleared out.
Yeah,
I'm like,
wow.
You know, you take it, but it's all to musical taste. You take somebody who has substance, but then you take somebody who has no substance. And you know, so
it's hard
society
for
has
people
been
to listen
kind
to
of
substance.
Yeah,
of course it is.
When you listen to someone with substance, of course. Well, you have that factor, and then you also have the factor that when people listen to the truth, it's hard for them to accept and digest. So listening to Kendrick Lamar is sometimes meaning take a look in the mirror. Okay, so a lot of times people like, fuck that. I don't want to look at myself. Like I'm not, because then I have to start making changes, and I'm too fucking lazy.
And they don't understand that that's what the music is supposed to do.
Right.
They think it's just supposed to make them shake their asses, and they don't have the training. You know, you need training to understand that this music is supposed to move me beyond this. And if all you've ever heard was, it's just supposed to make me shake my ass. Right. You don't know that you're supposed to be listening to for more.
Ultimately, when you get like Little Yachty, who will clearly say, it's not about what I say, as long as the beat is dope and I do whatever I do, that's it. It's like, no, dude, you've lost a lot of key elements of what this as an artist is about. Not even as an MC, as an artist. You've lost a lot of the key elements to have success.
You've lost everything, and go do what you want to do, but don't call it hip hop, son.
Exactly, and you know, and I was talking to Amina about this not too long ago. Back in the days, you know, you listen to Wu-Tang and a lot of these rappers, they were rapping about selling drugs. These idiots now are rapping about taking drugs.
Taking drugs.
So can you look in 20 years now? You know, we got Rakim and we got Big Daddy Kane and, you know, Master Ace. All of these artists still perform. Cool G Rap. Look at these crop of artists that are out now. If they're not dead, imagine how they're going to look 15, 20 years from now, getting up on stage doing that stuff that they call themselves doing. And to each his own, because I understand the generations change. You know, my mom didn't like when she told me Flavor Flav was a crackhead before I even knew. You know what I mean? And she didn't like that I was listening to the Ghetto Boys and NWA. So I understand that. Just like their parents didn't want them to listen to Motown. They thought Motown was, you know, Elvis gyrating was too much. You know what I mean?
I mean, you listen to Howlin' Wolf. You listen to Muddy Waters. That is pornographic music at that time.
Exactly. So I understand that the kids have their ears tuned into what they hear, but we also were having a conversation yesterday, and somebody was saying, well, why aren't kids in Inglewood like open to a Mick Jenkins? And I said, because it's too complex for them. I said, kids they listen to music which is in the radius of their community or their block. Some of these kids ain't never been downtown. Some of them never traveled to the south side or the north side. They might just stay on the west side. So they only listen to what is accessible to them, and they're not open to listen to other stuff. And that's okay. because that's the beauty of the diversity of the city. But when the music is harmful and, you got drill music and, cats are really living this, it's different when people are dying. NWA was doing reality rap, but the media turned it into gangster rap.
And I have to say this. One of the biggest problems we have now, and this isn't a shot at any genre of music, because even in drill music, there is kids that are dope, that are spitting dope shit.
Oh yeah,
the beats can be dope. There's in any genre or anything. This is an attack on any type of music, but there is. I mean, it's like a war, man. It's like I feel like there's a massive de-evolution of hip hop going on. Hip hop has evolved and evolved so much, and I mean, are we at a point where we have nowhere to go but backwards? I don't believe that.
Right.
And I think that, hip hop is supposed to evolve, right? It was created by a bunch of teenagers. So it has that youthful spirit, and it's always room for it to grow. But we don't have the liberty to redefine what hip hop is. Right. And I think that's the place where we are now, where it's like, we're sitting around arguing, like trying to figure out, well, is this hip hop, or how do we define it, or what? We don't get to redefine the premise of this culture and why it was put together and what it's supposed to be for. And I hear a lot of young artists sometimes kind of making that reference that, oh, that was y'all stuff and we get to do ours. And you can still do yours, but there's certain principles that still must be followed, and the integrity of the culture still must be intact. And we don't have the liberty to say lyrics don't mean nothing no more. Because if the beat is hot, we don't have that liberty.
I can listen.
The foundation was on Amina.
I can listen to a record in 2 seconds. I don't have to do any. There's no formula or anything I have to figure out. I can listen to a record in 3 seconds and tell you this record's hip hop or it ain't. I mean, you can be rapping on it, and I'm still gonna say that ain't hip hop.
Can I inject some conspiracy theory?
Oh Christ! Go ahead, Carlos.
All right. So we just got done talking about how hip hop overthrew a government. So this is the voice of the people. Did corporations maybe do this or push it in this direction to dumb it down so we're not talking about what's happening in reality?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
There
not
goes
even
your
a conspiracy
theory. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very intentional. And even if it wasn't deliberately to dumb down the music to harm us, it has certainly done that.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with the fallout. I know we did, it was years ago, we sat on a panel for, was it Beyond Beats and Rhymes, maybe? And there were a bunch of teenagers in the audience. And I remember us telling the teens that, actually, this was back when people actually listened to the radio. And we were telling the teens that this garbage that's being programmed on the radio is like intentionally to make them like not want for more, to just, this is supposed to satisfy your little teen urges, and that's it. And the students were appalled when they realized that, wait a minute, you mean to tell us they're intentionally playing stupid music for us? The kids were appalled. And I find now with the technology that's out there and the access, that a lot of that same fabric of teens are the ones who are looking for something different and who have shunned the industry and are looking for. So I get excited when I hear, young people sharing empowering music, because that's really what they want to do. There's a documentary, which I'm surprised that I even reference it, done by World Star Hip Hop, it was about Chicago drill. And the whole documentary was all about drill, and you're seeing the inner workings of these drill crews and these groups. But at the end of it, they shared some clips of Rhymefest working with some young people in the program that he does. And there was a young guy up there rapping, and he was sharing his lyrics about, I don't know, shoot 'em up, bang, bang, drugs, whatever. And Rhymefest was like, man, like, didn't your mom and brother just get killed? Like, and the kid's like, yeah. And he's like, where's that story? I haven't heard that story. You rhyming about all this other stuff. Before you know it, the kid's in tears, crying about how he really does not want this life for himself. So the children want more. They want better. They want greater music, greater attention, and they're crying out for it. And if you offer it to them, they will receive it. So, you know, we should dispel this myth that all the young people are stupid and they just want to listen to stupid music, because that couldn't be any farther from the truth.
No, that
and
kid
they really
even
want greater music.
That kid doesn't
and
even
greater
understand.
art.
That kid that Rhymefest is talking to doesn't even understand that he's perpetuating his own the violence around him.
Right.
Just, if not anything, the energy he's putting back in the world is so negative that he doesn't. I mean, it's
and a lot of these kids don't know that, and they don't learn any better, because like Chris said, if you don't leave your block, and this is what they're talking about on the block, then you're just gonna, you know, play for the circus and give them what they want. And really, I mean, that's probably the limit of your capacity. That's probably all you can do. Like this student isn't gonna, I mean, this kid isn't gonna turn around and all of a sudden engage us in some, you know, conversation about, you know, the political ecosystem. No, they're all about whatever's happening on the block. That's all they know. People keep hearing that they should know better and do better, but you know, like people are like, oh, they need to get off the block and go get a job. Who's going to hire them? They don't know how to fill out an application. They don't know how to, you know, wake up at a certain time every day and go to a job. So like the issues are so much deeper than, you know, the drill that might rise to the top. And that's what we hear. Oh, they're making this drill music, or it's the music that they listen to. But the problems are so much deeper than that it's really, you know, we should be paying a greater attention because of the nature of the music that's coming out of that.
Well, you and Chris continue to educate. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, that's 110% correct. But to get back to Carlos's original question or statement, is that people eventually realized how powerful music is and how influential it is, because when it's coming up in the 70s and then throughout the 80s, and you're seeing this progression here, people didn't know how to market. They didn't know what exactly to do. They just knew that, okay, well, it's kind of popular. There's some people that like it. We're going to sell it. We're going to put it out. But then you start getting the NWAs, you start getting the Public Enemies, you start getting the BDPs. And even if for somebody for like NWA, you know, is vulgar as people thought they were and stuff like that. Yeah, they had their songs that kind of did that, but even the songs that are considered, you know, gangsta, it wasn't glorifying that stuff.
No, it was
right.
It was stories.
It's truth versus glorification.
Right.
100%.
But as you see, that stuff happened in the late 80s and then into the early 90s, and that stuff starting to get, you know, just as we said, you started seeing people going from wearing the big dookie ropes to African medallions and that kind of stuff. And then right there, it's kind of like you see that, okay, now we're seeing that this is starting to have a major effect on things. People are getting more conscious. They're getting more involved in things. They're getting wanting to change. So how about this? How about we start pushing this dumb shit here?
Right.
And you can completely see the switch. And we're just not going to play this. We're just not going to financially support this. And then now is what you have 20 years, 25 years of that being ingrained into the youth with that. Right. So it's refreshing to hear you say, Mia, that you've come across a lot of people that are really itching to hear and to for more.
Well, there's a void. There's a void for that they want at this point. A lot of people, once they're, as they say, woke, you know, and you let people know what the score is. Right now is a time that the industry is shaking in its boots. And even if, let's just say, the conspiracy theory, right, from the people who are controlling the airwaves to controlling the stuff that they want us to hear. The internet is a tool. It's our job to make sure that we teach the kids how to use it properly and to tell them what they need to look for in order to educate them, in order for them to advance themselves. But I'll tell you what, kids like Chance the Rapper are coming, and they don't need you, and they don't need the industry. They don't need anything. They don't care.
Right.
And radio and all of that need to be real scared.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
What radio? It's soon to be obsolete.
They don't even need it. Yeah, and you know, and to kind of add on to that, I'm happy at what we see artists in Chicago doing. I was just on a panel yesterday with Malcolm London, and I'm sure if you guys are familiar, he's a poet artist from Chicago.
Absolutely.
And
Malcolm was very important in the a lot of the marches we've had recently. He was very visible
Black Lives
in the
Matter.
Black Lives
Yes.
Matter marches. Yeah, he was very visible.
Yes. And I've had the pleasure to listen to his recent project, which is phenomenal, by the way. A lot of good commentary, but almost less than, I would say, 2 years, 2.5, 3 years ago, Kevin Koval brought him over and another young lady that goes by the name of No Name Gypsy. And the music, the content, the consciousness that these children, that these kids have is exactly what we need, because they're not afraid. They're not afraid to say what's on their mind, and not in a street commentary in where they feel injustice is coming up, social, economic, downfalls. They're speaking this stuff through their music, still entertaining and having fun, and they're creating their own lane. And I think that's what I like to see about Chicago hip hop. Less me caring about what things sound like sonically. I like that these cats have created their own lanes. They're sticking to it, and they're not letting anybody shake them. Lord knows how many labels have I mean, Chance could have signed with anybody. He was like, nah, I don't need that. But then he sells out freaking, I call it Comiskey still. Y'all call it US Cellular. He sells out Comiskey.
I don't know what US Sailor is. I call it Comiskey. And I'm a
There we go, brother. There, see what I'm talking about? There you go.
That's not
He
even
sells
called
it
that
out better.
anymore.
Exactly. He sells it out better. Yeah, it's something else now. He sells it out quicker than the freaking socks. You know what I mean? And he does other stuff, and he's got all these A-listers and people hobnobbing him. And he would, me and Amina remember at the Metro, like, I don't know, probably 6-7 years ago, he's in an MC battle. You know what I mean? Just judging. We caught him at Elastic. Very humble kid, but smart. And he's doing things that are being a trendsetter to the industry.
Right.
To people who have been in the game, you look at him and see where his longevity is going to be as an artist, and some of these other people that are stepping up. So that's what I'm really proud to see out of Chicago artists. The fact that they are staying in their own lane. They're going back in the days, the producers, we were trying to emulate Pete Rock and Premier because we thought that that's what the industry wanted. These cats are they're banging on freaking coffee cans and recording it, and they're just pretty much doing what they want to do, so.
Yeah,
that I'm definitely happy of.
On that note, I believe tomorrow, I could be wrong, I got to double check, but I know this week Saba is releasing his new album.
Saba's dope, yes. Dope, very dope artist.
Oh, I love Saba. He's
very
dope.
Yes, absolutely.
Time for this or that?
I believe so.
All right, we'll explain to them. I'll have Ryan explain to you what this or that is, guys.
This or that. This or that.
As simple as choosing this answer or this answer.
All right.
Whatever you think. We'll start with Amina.
Okay.
MCing or teaching?
Wow. Whoa.
Wow. MCing.
Yay! I don't have to run by myself
Because I
anymore.
can do both. I can teach while I'm MCing.
That's
So
right. There you go.
yeah.
Good answer.
Good workaround.
Okay. Chris, Maywood or Bellwood?
Wow. Bellwood, because Maywood was too close to the west side. Thug.
Hey, I live in Austin.
Hey, I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. We had a house on Austin, 1124 North Austin, so I'm familiar. But yeah, too close to the west side.
Wait,
What's up?
the house?
The house.
The
yeah.
house.
And I live on the west side now, so I'm not afraid of the west side. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, if I had my choice, I'd stick with Bellwood, though.
All right, Amina, playing shows in the States or playing shows abroad?
Wow.
Playing shows abroad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They appreciate you more.
I mean, I love my people here, but you know, I like to go elsewhere.
So,
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Chris, spaghetti or biscuits?
wow. Wow.
How do you like your gluten?
You know what? I know exactly. Yeah. Extra gluten, right? I would have to say spaghetti because there's sauce and you can add meat to it. The biscuits are just the biscuits, you know.
So is that ragu, prego, Hunter, Aunt Millie?
All of them.
Okay.
Nice.
She was
But
there you go.
I saw what you did there, Amina.
Saw that?
That's why we keep her around.
All right, I gotta have Carlos ask this last one because it's to both of you.
All right. So
Okay.
since we referred to you guys
wait.
earlier.
Let me breathe.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Since we referred to you guys earlier as the first couple of Chicago hip hop, Captain or Tennille?
Oh. Wow. Wow. I would have to say Captain. Because he did most of the production and stuff, right? Played the piano and all that.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah, so
Silent Destroyer, that guy.
I guess I'm Tennille.
see? So that was
Although you could have done Ashford or Simpson.
or Peaches
I
and
could
Herds.
have, but that's too easy. No, again,
This is
too
true.
easy.
This is true.
We got to bring the Anglos into it. It was way too
Yeah.
dark. The show's too dark.
Carpenters, you know. No. That's the,
The mamas or the papas?
exactly.
All right.
One thing. Go ahead, Ryan.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing that I have to say because we're talking about spaghetti and biscuits, and this is take it how you want. Any way you cut it, one of the greatest shows I've ever seen, performance-wise, of anything rock, hip hop, or anything was Spalaney's live. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen, and I'm not saying that because I know these guys. It's just
Thank you.
I could watch you guys perform, and the hair on the arm stands up. It's just so electrifying.
Wow, thank you, man. Thank you. You know what? I appreciate that. A lot of the shows was very spontaneous. Now I have to say, rest in peace to Doc Brown. He really got us comfortable on stage. You know, not turning our back to the audience. You know, mic control. He really worked us like crazy. But with a Spalaney show, there was always a surprise. Like one time at the Elbow Room, Cordell pulled out a sword on stage. You know. Casey came in right on his verse from Planet S, and we were halfway through the set. You know, we would push each other off the stage. It was just, I don't know, it was like a frat boy party up on stage whenever it came time to us perform. We'd push each other over, but we always knew, know your lines, you know, do what you have to do. But we always have fun, and I think that kind of reflected when people would see when we do a show. And even now, still when I get with them, we don't move as fast as we used to, but we still have fun and push each other over and you know, support each other. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
I became a Spalaney groupie back in the day too.
right.
After
She used to manage the group.
Okay.
She used to manage us.
I didn't manage you.
Yes, you did.
I was like the secretary, the
Well,
administrative assistant or something.
She used to manage us.
But anyway.
She used to manage us.
So Hammond
And nothing's changed. She still manages you.
Scott
That's
on
right.
Facebook,
There you go.
Hammond
There you
Scott
go.
on Facebook said, "Y'all going back to Captain and Tennille? Y'all really showing your age. Watch it, son."
That's
right.
Carlos brought that up.
That's right.
I did.
That's,
I don't care. Whatever.
From Blase Blah. So shout out to Ski from Blase Blah. A few other quick shout out to some people that we got watching this show throughout the night. We've had people comment and we got M Collapser, DNA Beats, BVAX, of course, Urbanized Music.
What up, B-Vax?
Yeah.
DNA.
We got 606. I'm assuming that's Shadow Master.
Shadow.
We got
Griffin said,
Lifestyle.
"Nice shirt."
We got Riddell, Drayford, always
Awesome.
supporting, always looking.
DNA.
So
DNA, I'm sorry. You know what? I just realized was on my list to call DNA tomorrow yesterday, and he texted me, and I never texted him back because I was so busy. DNA, I swear to God, I'm gonna call you back.
No, we're on the same page because I told him earlier that that we're gonna get back to him. So
yeah, no, I literally like sometimes people will text me or email me or whatever, and I'll literally write it down, like call them back later today because I'm caught up doing whatever I'm doing, and then it just slipped away.
The sticky note gets caught in the wind.
yes. And our little disclaimer for Midway that we say, or that we can't really say enough, is that we're still not done. So please don't get angry. Please don't put up angry Facebook messages saying that you're not in it, because we haven't got to you yet.
Because chances are you're on Risky's to-do list and he lost it.
I'd say that
you're on a sticky note.
Terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, that being said, Mr. Sean Doe, you want to tell us what's up for shows this week?
Sure, it's a couple things going on this week. Well, tonight at Sub T is the 2-year anniversary to Boom Bap Open Mic. It features John the Author, Josh Safe, Javon, Sarcastic, Substance, E. Jones. It started already. You should be listening to us, but you can go over there.
It's a hip hop show, so we all know it's going to start late. So therefore, they're cool. When we're done here in a few, then they can all head over.
Yeah. And then also tonight started Emporium's Haunted House in Logan Square. It goes to from today to the 27th, and you buy a ticket, and it includes 1 free drink and entry. Obviously, tomorrow night, you know where you should be.
That's right.
That's with us.
And we
Chicago
will not
night.
be starting late.
That's right.
No, not at all.
Starting on time.
That's right.
So Chicago Night of Hip Hop Stars. 6 to 10 upstairs. Sub T.
Yep.
Be there because it's gonna be awesome.
It will.
Right.
We
Sean don't have all his little pins.
Thanks, Risky. October 29th, Saturday, Terminology at Sub T. It's $10. AM early morning, Clever One, Walter J, Live Harder, Boogie, Ill State, quote, Serious Matter, and it's hosted by Shadow Master.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a couple things going on. Also Saturday.
Shout out to J Norm too. So.
Also Saturday, Ghost Free Hood pop-up shop at Roto Fuji. It's gonna be like spooky arts and stuff like that, and that's from 11 to 7 p.m.
Dope. And I just want to say that we're going to be off next week. It is a combination of Halloween and a Bears Monday night game. Not that many people are watching the Bears anymore, or probably should be, but we are going to pause for a week.
We're playing the Vikings. Is it the Vikings?
Yes, it is the Vikings.
If you're watching them, you should actively root for them to lose so we get a better draft pick.
Good idea.
I was hoping they were going to go all the way to 0-16, but
there we go.
They won one, so go figure.
They couldn't even get losing right.
They couldn't get it right.
Well, how funny is it that the 2 worst teams in the NFL right now, the Browns and the Bears, are from the cities that currently have the 2 best baseball teams?
Yeah, go figure.
But anyway,
let me throw this out there. The Bears were playing at Wrigley Field when the curse was put on the Cubs. So maybe the curse is off of the Cubs, but now on the Bears.
I'm in on that. I don't even care. Take it.
Yep, that's it.
Kill that goat.
We will be back. We'll be back the following week, though, on November 7th, and our guest is going to be Ill State Assassin's own Kingdom Rock. So Cousin Rico is going to be in the house.
Cousin Rico.
It's going to be another good one. And I'm going to end it with our sponsors for the show, which is Genesis Art Supply, 2525 North Elson. They've been great to the hip-hop community as a whole and to us at Midway for all the generosity that they've done. So go check them out. And, of course, Emporium Arcade Bar. You catch DJ Sean Doe and DJ Risky Business amongst many other people there that spin there on a regular basis. So check them out in Wicker Park and Logan Square. And I'm gonna end it with Urbanized Music, Chris and Amina. Where can people find you guys at if they want to connect with you?
Urbanizedmusic.com.
That's right. And
Cool.
We're on SoundCloud and Bandcamp and all that other stuff. So, and we got a new project coming.
Oh
out
yeah, that's
soon.
right. A brand new
Nice.
album. We've been working. Ooh.
Yes, featuring production from Tony Baines, Tall Black Guy, Kaz from Out and Watch City, myself, and a few other people. So it's coming along pretty good.
Okay. When is soon? Before the end of the year?
Before
Yes.
the end of the year, yes, absolutely.
I got to shout out Watch City. They're a bunch of really dope, talented MCs,
Yes.
DJs,
Shout
producers.
out to more.
Yes.
More, and when we were on the road with More, I would yell at him everywhere we went. More, get your shit together. So More, get your shit together. But no, I have to say they do have their shit together. They're very talented kids, or not kids. I call everybody a kid younger than me.
Yeah.
They're very talented individuals, and they need to be recognized because they hold down Elgin, and they're very proud of being from Elgin. They're not the dudes they're not the people that are like from 40 miles outside of Chicago and then try to rep Chicago. They're the dudes that rep where they're from, and I think that's very stand up.
Yeah. And
they hold it down.
To add, they were easily influenced by, and when I talk to more, they're very respectful of the people before them. So they model themselves behind Rec Center.
Rec Center, yeah.
Rec
Who
Center
originally kicked it off out there. So they're, and Rec Center embraces them like little brothers and kind of paved the way for them. So that's that whole giving back thing and let somebody else come up, So
I can't wait. I generally get excited for every interview, but Rec Center is one that I really like. We have yet to they're on our list to interview, but and we're going through the motions, like me and Ryan talk of getting, we have to go through all the process of where we're at, and Rec Center is at a point where I'm going to reach out to them, and I really hope they would like to be a part of this project. We would love to have them part because I'd really love to hear their story. I was a big fan of everybody from Moses to EMAC and Maintain and all those guys. That was a Mind, Body, and Soul was the 12, and then they had the Lonely People album.
Yeah.
They're really talented.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So as we end it, Risky, where can everybody find you at?
DJ Risky Biz, Twitter, and I think I'm not very active on Twitter. Where I'm more active on is Instagram for some reason, because I like to put pictures up of useless crap.
Way to sell it, kid.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun. Like it's a lot of like toys and socks and my dog and crap like that. But I'm at DJ Risky Biz 1975. And then you can go to obviously Midway Doc Instagram. And Ryan, you can give all our website info out.
Yes. Carlos, where can everybody find you at?
Before I share my deets, I would like to I would like to thank for his service and bring attention to his passing to the one and only Herb Kent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
He every time I heard him, for the most part, was at my mom's house on a Sunday afternoon, and he would always do Battle of the Bands, and he was a museum of music. So he was on the radio since forever and a day. So tip of the cap to Herb Kent,
The cool gent.
for just being amazing, and for your service to music.
Well, every DJ in Chicago owes him a tip of the cap, and if you're a DJ and you don't know who he is, then shame on you, as I wrote on my Facebook page. If you don't know who he is, go get educated.
Yeah. So with that being said, look for me pretty much anywhere. Coconut Justice. I'm out there. Just do a search, and that's me.
BVAX wanted to remind us that since we're not on next Monday night, that at Subterranean on Halloween is King Magnetic and Ari the Rugged Man. I know that there's some other people on there, and I believe Mike One is hosting that show.
Oh Lord,
that we're sorry.
No, Mike. I'll tell you, Mike. If he was born to do anything outside of whatever he thinks he's doing now, that kid is a born host. He's born entertainer. At the end of the day, whether he's rapping,
right,
singing, playing drums, talking, whatever, I give him full credit. Chris, you can verify that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So if Mike is a host of his show, you are going to be entertained and probably offended.
Yes. Yes.
Sean Doe, where can people check you out at?
At DJ Sean Doe, SeanDoe.
Cool.
Twitter, Instagram, whatever.
And you can find me at 278 Media on Instagram and Twitter. The number is 278 and Media. Midway, of course, go to midway.com. Midwaydocumentary.com, where you can check out news and videos and everything else. Check out who we've interviewed, check out who's making the film, all that kind of stuff that you want to see. Check that out and follow us on Twitter at MidwayDoc and Instagram at MidwayDoc. And you can check out videos on YouTube at Midway Documentary Shy. So, man, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Amina, for being part of the show tonight. This is great.
Thanks for having us. Yes.
Awesome.
And all you squares better be in the house tomorrow night. Let's support. Let's show what kind of support we got for Chicago and what we're doing.
$5.
That's it.
$5. That's it.
Yes.
All right.
And it's going to be a better time than that sandwich you're going to get at Subway.
That's right.
Look, a pack of squares don't even cost $5 no more.
That's right.
Fuck the cup. Pour it in my hand for a dime.
There we go. That's right.
And it's good
Exactly.
for you.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Kingdom.
All right, y'all.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.